Hey, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the Meta and Apex Legends Competitive Podcast. I'm your host, Burke, and today joining me is Apex competitive analysis YouTuber and streamer Garrett from MooreOver. And we're going to be discussing competitive maps, the good and bad of Stormpoint and World's Edge dominating competitive play, why the other maps are really not used too much, and how these maps can be balanced to make competitive ALGS better. So, Garrett, thank you for joining me today.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It's
Yeah.
a ton of fun to talk about the maps, and I have an excuse to talk about them, so thanks.
Yeah, I definitely want to take advantage of your knowledge on this. We'll get into a little bit of the videos you made. But before we dive into that, I just kind of curious because, and we haven't talked about this off or anything. How did you get into like competitive Apex content? Whether just competitive Apex itself, and then obviously into the content creation space.
Oh, man. A few people have asked me that, and it's always interesting when I do answer it because specifically, I didn't plan to become a content creator of any kind. I'm a voice actor outside of this. I try and perform in roles, both commercial, animation, video games, whatever I can try and get my hands in. But I'm pretty small in that regard. I don't have like a lot of credits to my name. So I was thinking of ways I could like practice, keep using my voice, do other things that I have an interest in. So I'm just talking. And I've been watching Apex Competitive for several years. And I was like, okay, I know a lot about Apex Competitive. Why don't I just talk about it? And then I made like a little script for Art of the Rotate, worked on that, talked to a few people to get the idea down, and eventually that surprisingly hit it off. And here I am now, like still doing this. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, you got to talk with a lot of like big names in the Apex scene, which is, I mean, it's definitely interesting because I found you on your first video. I think it was mainly through the competitive
Aw.
Apex Reddit, and which I've been a long time lurker of. Never really used it too much. I got the occasional comment or post that got a lot of likes, but then that was about as far as it went. But I do want to talk a little bit about the content you do make because you've gotten to obviously on your streams on Twitch, which is twitch.tv/MooreOver. Am I correct on that?
Underscore. There's an
Underscore
underscore. Like
MooreOver.
I
Okay.
can't get rid of it. I'm trying so hard. I can't.
Well, do you want to talk a little bit about the content you make? Do you have a specific? I know you've made some other videos for other things outside of Apex, but in terms of your Apex content, is there a style of content that you're aiming to make, or in an ideal world, is there a specific niche that you want to fit yourself into in terms of Apex content?
With Apex content in particular, just like content in general, I've talked to Jumba and Jayhawk about this, and it's kind of interesting to think about. When we were talking about Jayhawk is like the team content creator. He talks about a lot of the teams, a lot of
Right.
the stories of those groups and how they work. Jumba is the player
Right.
story man. He makes the stories for all the players. He gets the faces front and center of the stars of the show. And then for me, I'm the game itself. I'm the one that is bringing up as much as I can about the actual ins and outs of the game that those stars are playing in. So
Right.
that's kind of the little difference, and that's kind of where I've been trying to keep most of my content into. I've definitely thought about and have tested trying to make videos specifically about players and teams,
Right.
but I'm glad I didn't because the first one I was gonna make was an optic video right after champs,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, oh, Jayhawk literally just made that. Yeah, I'm just gonna stay in my lane.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He
Yeah.
quite literally, as I was thinking about it, oh, Jayhawk just posted a video. I'm gonna stay here.
Yep, that's that's understandable. I think the best thing about Apex competitive content I've noticed so far is that there is really a lot of room. I mean, obviously, it does feel like you kind of have to fit a niche, but there's a decent amount of room to work within your niche and figure out what that is right now because there are a lot of content creators making this type of content that you make, or that I'm trying to make for that matter. It's definitely a newer territory, which does make me think that this esports still has a lot to offer, which we can talk about a little bit later. But I do want to get your opinion specifically on the maps today, because obviously you made two different videos. One talking about the World's Edge map and all the different POIs, as well as the Stormpoint. You made a video very recently talking about all the Stormpoint POIs, and even got some input from some of their creators. Could you talk quickly just a little bit about those two videos and why you decided to make those specifically?
So those videos came from kind of a part of me way back when. I don't tap into it much anymore, but when I was growing up, like one of my biggest things was uh you've played Halo, you know what it is.
Yeah, of
Forge mode.
course.
Like
Forge mode.
making maps in Forge mode, doing things in TF2 where you try and figure out how to use the hammer editor for the love of God. Never do it again. And try and make maps and do all sorts of things in there. And it was always this fascination to me of how maps were made and what made them tick and what made them work. And that was like the one thing when I was thinking about what to do after like the Art of the Rotate videos and Art of the Team Fight and all that. I was like, what can I talk about that I would be interested in and would be pretty untouched for most of the like YouTube scene? And I was like, oh, like a real deep dive into the maps themselves. Like people talk about like the best rat spots or the
Right.
like the best places to play from, but they don't talk about like the fundamental ideas, the design, where how the endings work, how they work as landing spots. I was like, okay, I like World's Edge. I want to make a video about World's Edge. I want to try talking about a map. Let me just do the whole thing, and then I ended up making a like I think 40-minute video on it,
Yeah.
and I thought I would never do it again. I genuinely thought I was like, okay, that took a lot of work out of me. I'm good. I'm just gonna make that one video and move on to other things. I moved on to other things. They didn't do that well. I'll be honest. They did not do that well. Not that I didn't enjoy making them. It's just like I knew I was getting out of my niche, and I was thinking, okay, what can I make to get back into that niche?
Right.
Well, they liked that map video. I could probably improve upon it. And that's what made Stormpoint. And that is currently the one that is becoming the most popular on my channel right now. Yeah, the Welcome to Stormpoint. And I definitely would like to continue doing more like that one compared to the World's Edge one, just because it felt more story driven rather than like a cold analytical review of a map like I did on World's Edge.
I like that. And I also like that you brought in lead designer. Is that correct? The lead designer of both World's Edge and Stormpoint into that.
I believe the exact terminology they use is the principal designer for Stormpoint, Rodney Reese. But yeah, lead designer, the lead map designer, definitely.
That was
he go ahead.
I was gonna say that was a very for one, I was just like, oh, I guess you could do that, huh? Like just reach out to the people that are making this game. Sometimes it feels like there's the content space and then there's the game, and it's kind of separate. So it was interesting. I feel like you're the first creator I've ever seen bridge that gap and actually just bring one of the employees of the game. I mean, it helps that they're not working there anymore, so they probably don't have any issues coming over. But I mean, it helps that you were able to bring, Rodney Reese over and actually get his insight into the game, something I haven't seen in the YouTube space, at least for Apex, which is a very commendable thing. I really appreciate that you did that.
I mean, I just appreciate Rodney being willing to. I was not expecting it. Like when I was making the video, I was like, okay, how do I want to make it different? Well, I actually want to talk about like the development a bit. How do I do that? I'm gonna starting to talk like Rodney. I don't know why I'm doing that now, but okay. Anyways,
It's the voice actor.
I was like, okay, what can I do to change it up and make it better? Well, why don't I talk about the person who made the map? Because at the time I was reading up all the info on Stormpoint, and I found the specific blog post by Rodney Reese when the map came out, where he talked about like what fundamentally Stormpoint was supposed to be. I was like, why don't I just reach out to him? Just send him an email, see what happens. And I put all the information. I was like, hey, I am a fan of your work. I would like to make make a video about your map. Would you be willing to sit down with me and talk about it? And a lot of people, yeah, they're nervous about that, and I get that nervousness. But 9 times out of 10, when you send an email like that to somebody, especially about something they're passionate about, yeah, they're gonna respond. They're gonna respond about it. And he was very enthusiastic to do it. And I couldn't have thanked him anymore for that. I really couldn't have.
Yeah,
It was absolutely amazing.
I think everyone that watched that video is pretty appreciative that you were able to get that and put that together, because it did definitely bring a much larger insight into specific development choices of the maps. I think there is this inclination when looking at maps, especially maybe looking at more recent maps, to kind of think, well, where is the design intentions behind this? Because sometimes it does feel like, well, they just kind of put these different POIs that they wanted to have together. Maybe they put a, mountain here just to make it not completely connected. And it seems like sometimes that's all we think that there is to the thoughts behind the maps. But when reality, there's a full team, or at least, one or two very passionate individuals making these things happen. And yeah, they are held by a certain amount of standards by the company and maybe restrictions based on certain things. But ultimately, there are people that want to make it work. And specifically on Stormpoint and World's Edge, it was good to see that through line of exactly what they were going for, and how it did kind of show how, putting a good mind with a good intention on the project and having them kind of not withheld to the restraints of what the company was specifically going for in terms of, like, obviously they want it's fast paced in some aspects, but then when they let him do Stormpoint, they were like, we just kind of want you to make a good map, do what you think you'd want to do with it, and let him run with it. And I think that, having somebody that had a mind for making it competitive was obviously, looking back years later, a good choice, which is crazy to say years later. But yeah, I mean, Rodney definitely knew what he was doing, and put his heart into that. And I think it was cool that you got to put that into perspective. I wanted to kind of move on from that, and I guess add on to it in the sense of, we've seen what, Rodney was able to put together with World's Edge and Stormpoint to make these two maps that are the only two maps that are being used in competitive. Obviously, Kings Canyon was at a time, and then got moved to the side when Stormpoint was introduced. But, now we have 5 maps, and we have 2 maps that are actually being used for competitive, and the others aren't even being really considered, at least that we're aware of. Obviously, Olympus had that little stint where it was getting trialed by the devs, asked for them to trial it. But I'm just curious, like, what aspects of the maps, and taking what you've learned with that discussion, and just in general, like, and I'll chime in my thoughts too, but what aspects of the map do you think makes them better or worse for competitive? Like, what can we take from, like, those 2 maps, or what are the things that are good about the other 3 maps that just make competitive better from a map perspective?
For maps in particular, I end up talking about it a little bit, but it's a fundamental thing where every player on the map, no matter where you land, even if you land on, say, Dome or Coastal Camp, you should feel like you have a chance of making something work. You should never feel like you're hitting a wall. You're quite literally unable to make the right decision, or make the decision to win. Yeah, you're more likely to win a game, an Epicenter game, if you're landing at Epicenter. But everybody on the map should feel like they should win that game if they play it right, if they do it well. And every POI should feel like they should have that chance, no matter where they're at, no matter what they have. And for World's Edge and Stormpoint, while there's definitely varying levels, obviously we know how bad the split POIs are on World's Edge. Yep. That fundamental idea still stays the same. Like, a team at Fragment has just as good of a chance of winning, well, not just as good, but a good chance of winning a thermal game if they play their cards right, if they know how to handle the map, they know how to rotate. That is a fundamental part of it. And the other part is the predictability of the map. I think I talk about this on World's Edge, but on the World's Edge video, but the predictability of a map is very important in how teams will feel comfortable doing it, because when you're putting all your strategy in, you're putting all your rotations in, and you're planning all of this ahead, and you're trying to make sure you have the most optimal play, you want to have a clear understanding of what the teams around you are also going to be doing.
Right.
So if I'm landing at Harvester, I feel like I should always be one of the first teams to be able to pass through Fragment after the Fragment team leaves, if I'm going north. Like, that's a thing I feel like I should be able to do. I may have Lava Siphon on my side, I may have Landslide maybe moving past me, but I'm going to be able to take my lane and go through it just fine.
Right.
The other maps, say Kings Canyon, have a fundamental difference in design that makes that predictability far less possible. Like, it was talked about by Rodney, but the room concept is a big thing with the original Kings Canyon. It's changed a bit in recent times. But the original concept is you walk into a room, everything is contained into that one area, and you know what's going to happen, and you can take a fight in that room. But it's kind of hard to understand what's going on in the other rooms. Say,
Right.
biggest example, Cage. Yeah, that one. It can often feel like a hodgepodge where teams just suddenly pile on into one place, and it's because nobody has a good idea of where teams are going to be moving from. That's a big problem in how these maps are designed. And you also there's some areas where how are you reasonably able to rotate out of them? Take I can't remember the name of it. The far north one added in season 8. I can't remember the name today.
I have it pulled up here, but
Hey,
I am blanking on the name of it. It's
Let me pull up Kings Canyon. I got Apex Legends status up. Crash site.
If anyone isn't using Apex Legends status, you're actually throwing.
It's amazing. Yeah, crash site. How do you say the zone is ending south and you want to rotate quickly? What do you do?
I mean, I don't know. Say that.
Same thing with what's the name again? Basin. Basin, the top right one near offshore.
Yep.
What do you do? Because everything is so tightly packed on Kings Canyon, and there's not a lot of rotation paths to work from. You're kind of forced to run into somebody or wait for them to leave.
Right.
And that's a big problem for competitive because teams like to be able to make their rotations, make their moves. And if they can't do that, well, kind of sucks. Now, actually, I want you to go ahead and give your input, give your thought, Mom.
No, you're good. I do. I really appreciate that. I think you're right. I think that is a big aspect of it. I think some of the big ones that I've, I categorized a couple here that I could think of. One of the big ones I thought was map size. I see that thrown around a lot, and I kind of want to discuss it with you because I'm not sure the level of validity to map size making a map more competitive or not. I think obviously Storm Point's a great example of map size helping. I think that map size allows room for more mistakes. It also allows room for more isolated fights. And so the game is generally going to be slower, which hopefully means better end games depending on a lot of other factors. But I think that was one of the biggest arguments with Kings Canyon, right? Was just the size of Kings Canyon just too small. I heard that argument used for Olympus, Olympus being too small. And obviously there's other things with that POI, which goes into like cover, playable cover. And then
actually, if you don't mind me.
Yeah, no, jump in. Yeah.
With Olympus in particular, I don't think there's any actual issues with the size with Olympus at all. I think Olympus is perfectly sized. I don't think there's a problem there. You kind of touched on it a bit with the space. There's a lot of open space in Olympus. Like if you pull up the map, if you have it, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
If you look at that and you point to me how you're supposed to walk through Hammond Labs without getting shot from 3 different directions at ultimate heights, I'd shake my head and just shrug. I don't know. I have no idea. Because that is one of the big fundamental issues with Olympus. In regards to size in general, size definitely plays a role. Don't get me wrong. Size plays a role, but it's not going to fundamentally make a map good just because it's big.
Right.
I think the easiest example of that is a little old map that you're probably going to ask me about at some point, Broken Moon. But
of course.
But a map can be smaller in general and still be pretty good. Nowadays, World's Edge used to be the biggest one, but nowadays World's Edge is kind of smaller on the end. And it still works very well as a competitive map just because of how much space there still is to work with between POIs to rotate through, how you are able to get from one place to another without really being forced to run into somebody for a majority of situations. You can make your spot and make your move just fine. That's a big thing. And as long as you can do that, it doesn't fully matter the size.
Okay. Yeah, I think that I think you make a good point, and it does come up to a different question that I've been thinking about it for a little bit. Is do you think that, and I think after this we should just dive into maybe just approach each map one by one, because as I'm thinking about it more and more, we keep jumping to different maps for examples, and maybe it'd be better just to use the map as the example itself. Um, one of the big things I've wondered for a long time is, we discussed these maps, should Olympus be added? Should Kings Canyon be added? Should Broken Moon get added? And the biggest thing I hear is competitive integrity, right? I mean, and then there's the list of things, right? Like the things you've mentioned for what's wrong with Kings Canyon, what's wrong with Olympus, what's the plethora of things wrong with Broken Moon. And ultimately, the question I wonder is if we were, if the competitive team that's, responsible for this in Apex Legends Global Series, if they just decided, hey, we're running all 5 maps, I don't know, 2 games, 1 game on each, and then dealer's choice. I don't know. Like if they just decided, we're gonna run every map in competitive, is there a legitimate criticism for competitive viability, or is it just that the game needs to be played differently?
Whew, that's a can of worms. Okay. I'm gonna try and argue both points for a minute because it definitely is a level of yes, competitive teams should be willing to adapt and play differently to the different maps. That's an absolute thing. We know in NA teams are just unwilling to make the change until the last minute. That's just a
Right.
thing. We know that. But in general, yes, teams should be willing to just take the adaptation, make the adaptation when necessary, and when a big change is made. Like the perk system really did make a major change in
Right.
how a lot of play styles had to be played, and we've seen a lot of teams embrace it, like Aurora with the Lifeline. A lot of hard zone teams changing up their play style to be able to get Evo and then move in late. A lot of more third ring beacon style of plays happening. I don't know if that's is that basic enough for a meta discussion, or do I need to get more in depth here?
You can get as in depth as you want. I'm here for
Okay.
it.
Yeah, a lot of like fundamental changes to how the play styles are made based off of the perk system change. And that's a good adaptation. That's something that
Right.
absolutely should happen. And it should be the same with the map. If another map is played and it has a fundamentally different style from Stormpoint or World's Edge, it should absolutely get the chance to be adapted to. In saying that,
Here it comes.
we have actually had the time to try these maps. Kings Canyon, very early on, was tried to be played alongside World's Edge. That was a big thing. Olympus did have its runs twice. Broken Moon had like 2 runs. Let's be honest, like two games, and then people decided, nah, good. But these maps, even though they may not have been given the best shot over the course of the past 5 years of Apex's lifetime, they've definitely had those chances to show up. And while they may have been fun for maybe 1 or 2 or 3 games, in the long term, their fundamental designs are what make them something that shouldn't be added to the game, added to the competitive pool. That's the biggest thing. And when we go through like each individual map, I can go into more detail of why I think that. But I do agree. Yes, they should have the time to get the chance to adapt. They should absolutely do that. Sometimes competitive teams just need to grow up. That's definitely true. But these maps have had time to grow up. They've had the chance.
Yeah, I wanted to ask that because I go back and forth with my thoughts on it. Ultimately, I think the main reason that I kind of agree that most maps shouldn't, be put in until they're at least close to ready in some form is because obviously you want this to have we harken back to competitive integrity a lot, or at least I personally do. And I think what it comes down to is you want each team, like you said in the very beginning, you want each team to come into this and think that they reasonably have a shot at winning based on where they're landing. Each landing should have within some degree the chance of succeeding. Now, obviously, there are nuances to that, like the argument of, well, if you want to do better, land at a better POI, and then you won't have this issue. And then there's contesting, and that comes from it. And then there's obviously, more nuance to contesting and the fact that it happens outside of the actual match days, which is a whole, is a very interesting aspect of Apex that I think is unique to Apex, is that the tournament happens outside of the tournament. It's something that doesn't really happen, I feel like, in a lot of other esports. But yeah, I mean, there's a
Not
lot of
for
not
long.
for long, which we'll get to later. But yeah, I think that the viability of POIs plays a big aspect, and the ability to get around out of other POIs, because like obviously a POI's power is affected by a lot of things, and some of the biggest are the ways of getting around the map. So like issues with Kings Canyon, where you have POIs where you can't see people walking up on you. You have really just no way of encroaching on, like moving from POI to POI without running into teams when you shouldn't, or unsolicited third parties and stuff like that. It does make it so that even from a viewer's perspective, it's not going to be terribly interesting, because even though a lot of, you'll see in every comment section about why are all these teams camping in end zone, or in the end zone, at the end of the day, the most entertaining and exciting part of ALGS is the end zones. And there's the off drop fights, and we love to see those. There's there's like rotation fights in the mid game, but ultimately I think people live for that game intensity. And if you have POIs or maps that are just poorly designed, you take that from the viewer, and you obviously rid the pro players of being able to at an equal footing be able to put down points, and play out of zones that would be favorable to them, and things like that. Overall, just makes the RNG in favor of a few select teams that won when they were playing in a practice tournament before this game's even started. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Otherwise, I think we could just dive into each map specifically and talk about the good and bad of those and what we would change, because I think that's a best way to approach this, and talking about map viability and exactly what makes them tick. So then we'll move on to Kings Canyon. I really want to just focus on what makes these maps good for competitive, bad for competitive, and then kind of, finish every map off with how we would change them if we were trying to make them comp viable, or just more comp viable in the case of World's Edge and Storm Point. Kings Canyon, where do you think it is right now in terms of comp viability? Do you think you could just pop it in? Do you think you'd have to make a few changes, a lot of changes, big overhaul? What are your thoughts?
So with Kings Canyon, biggest thing with Kings Canyon is obviously the size, and not so much the size of the map itself, but the size of the POIs compared to the dead space.
Right.
That's the big thing to keep in mind, is how much dead space you have compared to the POIs, and there's just barely anything. You have the canyon, you have the one area just I'm forgetting what's called today. The one area east of the canyon,
Right.
between, I can't remember all the names, capacitor and labs.
Yeah,
Like
I
that
need to
area.
pull up. I need to pull up
Yeah,
that
I
as
got the
well, of
names.
all the names.
There's so many names. It's hard to keep track. But yeah, that area right there where it's open. You have the main canyon, and then outside of that, like how much just space do you have to play around? I think when I look at Kings Canyon, while it is a fun map and I definitely can enjoy some of the things that happen in it, the biggest thing is everyone is funneled into like these very small areas where they can rotate reasonably from. And those areas are why so many teams end up in this like hodgepodge third party mess of action and action and action going back and forth. So if I had to change Kings Canyon to make it, if I had to change it to be more fundamentally competitively viable, I'd say the biggest things to keep in mind are the relative size of the POIs versus the amount of space you have to move around the POIs. That's a big thing.
Yep.
And I don't know how well you could do that with the size of Kings Canyon, but being able to do that would help a lot. And then the other thing is just how you move across the map. I talked about earlier the room concept that Rodney explained to me. With Kings Canyon, another big reason why there's so much third party action is how the room concept kind of puts you in a space, immediately tells you that there's a team nearby,
Right.
and gives you the chance to fight them. And competitive players, they're not dumb enough to just like immediately take a fight when they see it. That's not going to happen.
Right.
But if they do see an opportunity to take a fight, Kings Canyon out of any of the maps has the best opportunity for teams to suddenly
Just
walk
pop
into
up.
that room, see them fighting, and
Yep.
go, "Oh hey, I like 3KB. I'm gonna go look at that."
Yeah,
That's a fun little spot right there. Let me just come right in.
you make a really good point there, because I mean, I think that's a big misconception, is that Well, these, pro teams are just choosing to ape everything. It's all them just being hyper aggressive, and it has nothing to do with the map. It's all this and this. But you make a really good point. I mean, from a competitor standpoint, if you're seeing an opportunity to get KP, and from the knowledge you have, you don't see or have any reason to suspect a third party coming in, that makes sense to fight, or to third party if you see it. So it's a design. It's more leaning on the design of the map, not on the players, because at what point, you're basically like, the insinuation that people would be making is that these pro players, by not taking that fight, or by taking that fight, or throwing their game, when in reality the alternative is to move in a different direction with even less information, and realistically costing them, like you said, 3 KP, based on the idea that someone could show up based on the design of the map itself, which is just an interesting dynamic to think about, because it does really kind of remove a lot of the information that is important to a game like this. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is there.
Well, I do think there's like good examples of Kings Canyon and good ways that they can use it. I think one of the best examples I see of like a good competitively designed area in Kings Canyon, not like fun designed, but just competitively designed, is the space between Relic, Caustic, and Repulsor. If you can kind of see on the bottom area where all those 3 POIs are, you have this mountain center that wraps around into the canyon. You have the upper area with the 2 settlement spots that you can work with, a little one right between the watchtower that all of these spaces can work around. And one of the things that I always keep in mind when I'm watching or even playing on Kings Canyon is that this area, out of any of them, is full of space I can play around in. Like if a team pushes me at Repulsor, I have options to kind of move around and go through. If a team is at Relic, I can go around and find another way through the canyon. That's like a big thing about this specific area that I really like. And I do think there are other areas like that in Kings Canyon that can work. And I think with the right fundamental design change, it can work in competitive. But this is something I'm going to say multiple times here. You're going to make a fundamental design change that is going to change entirely how the map is played.
Right.
And while that can be competitively good, it may also take away something from how the game is casually.
Right.
Like if I had to like completely redesign Kings Canyon, you see that mountain in the center with the tunnel, with the path in between.
I could highlight my
Nuke that shit. That's gone.
Yeah. Just get rid of it.
There is now space there where teams can now move around and maybe remake some of the terrain so that you can't just immediately fight each other there.
Right.
But flattening that area so it's not just like this ravine that you die in as soon as you walk into, and a hilltop that has like complete control over everything. You have a space where teams can move around. Cage can have options. Containment can have options. Bunker can have options. That area, just breaking it up and making either like a more dense, a building-focused area, or just something with a lot more terrain.
Just pop
to work
that new
around
TDM map in
be
there.
A lot better.
Just right in the center.
Oh boy. Okay. Yeah.
Make it a new PI. Just pop it dead center there on that
Thunderdome
mountain.
is a whole video.
Thunderdome.
You gotta think of that. I'm good. Oh man.
It's right there. Thunderdome. Audience and all.
Jesus. Okay.
I do wonder, because I know that
like,
balloons were a big issue. They had to constantly, I feel like that's something they've always addressed on this map, is just like they've removed a lot of balloons, they've moved balloons. Do you think something like replacing them, or like adding more, adding less, changing them for tridents, obviously that would be a whole overhaul because the map's not designed for it, adding AoE, like kind of what they did with World's Edge, adding trials, do you think things like that could be used to make other play styles more effective, encourage people to kind of stay on the outside and not fight as much?
I don't think so, just because again it goes back into the size, where when you're playing from Caustic, and let's just say there's spiders in between Caustic and Relic right now. Let's just say there's like a spider nest right there that you can shoot at. An issue that still happens at Stormpoint when you're just playing it casually is you can walk around for a whole while, not see anybody. As soon as you shoot one prowler, suddenly there's 3 teams running at you.
Yes,
Kings Canyon is like 4 or 5 times smaller than that. What do you think is going to happen if you shoot one spider at caustic treatment? Well, you're about to have Repulsor on you. You're about to have Cage on you. You're about to have Marketplace on you. You're about to have Relic on you. You may even have the Crypto Array area too. Why not? Add that in. You know what? There's someone evacing from Octane too. Why not? Just join them in too.
Might as well.
That's like a fundamental issue with the PvE.
The AoE, yeah.
But I think if you wanted to like hard try and limit the amount of third-party options, yeah, you can get rid of the jump towers, but we have AVAX now, so it wouldn't matter. I think it'd just be how you have to redesign the spaces to be more open-ended instead of so room-focused. And I think that would take away a lot of
what makes
Kings Canyon was originally. Yeah.
Right. And I think, I guess, an important note to make talking about changing these maps is that, you know, there is a valid reason for not wanting every map to be, you know, a competitively viable map. You know, when you're playing pubs and you're just trying to fight everyone you can, you don't necessarily want to have everyone playing, you know, for zone or like, you know, doing rotates, dodging fights. I mean, some casuals do like that, but at the end of the day, most people that want to play that way end up going to ranked, and they don't really end up playing in pubs. Anyway,
I can tell you right now that Stormpoint video in particular, it got a lot of positivity. Don't get me wrong, but some of the most recent things I always see when I get a little notification on YouTube is someone just with the most vehement hatred, just going, "I fucking hate Stormpoint. Why are you making a video on the shit? Is this satire? What the fuck are you talking about? This thing's boring as shit."
Yep.
And I can't like completely refute them because casually, Stormpoint can be kind of boring.
It's not a fun pub
as much as I love it.
It's not.
It is really big. It has so much space. Great when you want to make strategies and make proper rotations. Not great when you're just looking to shoot somebody.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a really good point. So I think kind of leaving with KC, I would say KC, could you probably play in competitive? Maybe, but at the end of the day, it's kind of the way it is for a reason, and I think that changing it too much would ruin its charm. Yeah, go ahead.
Kings Canyon is a map that's been played competitively.
Yeah.
And it's actually where a lot of the strategies early on got started, especially with like Wraith, Watson, Pathfinder. That started on Kings Canyon with the preseason invitational. Like it can't be understated that, or not preseason. Was it preseason invitational? It's one of those. Anyways, yeah, with Kings Canyon, even though it's not like a competitive map nowadays, it still started it, and it can be respected for that. Like, if I had to give it a grade, I give it like a C. Like, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's still fine.
And most people that, when asked like which map, I've heard a lot of pros, like multiple different pros asked like which, if you had to play a third POI or third map for competitive, a lot of them say, you know, Kings Canyon, go back to Kings Canyon. So there's some validity to it. We'll move on to World's Edge because there's a lot to love, but there's also a few things to hate about World's Edge. Let's dive into it. What do you I guess initial thoughts. Let's get the highlights. What do we like about World's Edge? We touched a little bit on it already.
The highlights. Oh, shit, I spent like how long talking about the highlights? Okay.
And if you want, I give a few of mine. I think that
I want to hear yours first. I want to hear it.
So,
I want to see what you guys
for
have.
one, I think there is a really good element of the one thing I don't like about Stormpoint, and so I'm going to use this kind of a baseline for World's Edges. I like the concept of ultimate height, and I think it's very entertaining, but I think World's Edge having a level of flatness to it, as much as verticality can be fun, having a level of flatness to it does kind of level the playing field across the board, and it doesn't give insane crutches for rotational utility to one portion of the map, which is a issue when we get into Stormpoint, in my opinion, for making certain POIs even stronger. That being said, I think some other really cool things that they've done with World's Edge, I mean, it's a staple for a reason, is it's pretty predictable. All the loot path, or all like the rotation paths, are pretty set in stone, where if you know where a team is, you can know exactly which chokes they're going to go through, which was kind of one of the big things I was going to talk about when discussing what makes maps better or worse, is like not just like having choke points, but the positioning of the choke points are very important, because you do want to have funnels for teams to have to rotate through so you can know where they're going to go. but you also don't want too many, because then it reduces, or it makes the options too numerous that it's impossible to play competitively, because it's like, well, oh, well, they rotated through one choke to the right because they had a fight that was like 100 feet that way instead of, right where they were standing before. So now they're rotating to this one choke to the right. So you can't plan for that kind of thing. And it would cause a lot more fights to happen. Whereas if you have too few, then you can just have, you have this one choke that's a funnel for all teams to come through. So what they do really well is they have chokes that separate the map and split it. I mean, you could see just along the dead center of the map, you have this horizontal line, and then going up to Skyhook, you have another set of chokes. And it creates this really interesting dynamic, because when a zone pulls to either side, you have all these teams have to come through these chokes. And if you have good macro from a pro's perspective, you can know which chokes teams are going to take with some degree of accuracy. And you could choose to play around that, right? Like, you're like, well, I have to expect someone to hold me here, or I have to get through this choke before this team if I want to get into an end zone. Or it allows for a level of strategic play that if it was just all, like you said, like we talked about, like blowing up King Canyon because it had too many chokes, I would argue is a big reason. And here it's a good amount. So like if you were to make more, you kind of just could always get to end zone, or you could always get past things. There would be too many options to where strategic play would kind of be left lacking, for lack of a better word, in terms of macro perspective. Do you agree with that, or do you think I'm accurate with that?
Like your specific point about like the chokes being a fundamental part about how the rotations work so well in World's Edge, absolutely, I agree with that. Definitely. Too many options. I don't know if I 100% agree with that. I don't think having. I think one of the things that World's Edge, like if I had to talk about like a flaw of the rotations of World's Edge, is that in certain pockets of the map, say in Thermal Station, where you're one of the far teams that really have to rotate far, and let's say you are really unlucky and you don't find an evac anywhere. What do you do to get into Thermal Station? And this is like a fundamental part of the choke design. It's like, what do you do? Well, the option is you fight or you die. That's it.
Right.
That's your option. And I think having more options is never a bad thing in that scenario. Obviously, there's like a point where it just becomes an open flat space, and
right, yeah,
we get Olympus. But I think definitely there are areas in World's Edge that the choke heavy design of it, like sure, there's a lot of open space. The choke heavy design definitely suffers for parts of it. In saying that, I love World's Edge. Like,
no, I agree. I think that
World's Edge.
I think that leads into kind of another thought that I did have, which was, I personally think that the thermal, as you're right, if it ends there, you're kind of just screwed. If you're like, a climate team or something like that.
Well, I do want to clarify that one of the benefits a lot of these pocket areas have in World's Edge is that a lot of the big pocket areas like Thermal and Skyhook, as well as like Big Mod and Stacks, like these areas, sure, they're definitely really, really hard to get into in certain circumstances, but they usually have a lot of playable space inside of it. So I do want to
that's a good point.
Cushion my point with a counterpoint real quick of, yeah, true, but if you're set up right, you can get into them just fine. And that's a big point.
Well, that's actually, that's a good point, because the way that those are designed, because of all of that cushion, you do kind of ensure that more teams are within the POI and not gatekeeping as much. So there's like better chances to fight your way in, because you're not worrying about, especially in the case of like Thermal, you have them also, like often a lot of those teams are on low ground. So you're taking a fight on height, and those sight lines aren't necessarily, you don't have 30 teams looking at you walking in one choke. Obviously there's not 30 teams, but that is an interesting thing. I think that leads into one of my thoughts on another reason I like World's Edge. And this is kind of I feel like this is maybe a debate for people. So I am curious to hear your thoughts, but I think that World's Edge also does really well at directing play styles for POIs, and what I mean by that is like it has POIs that are good at certain things. And if you have a certain play style and you want to run a certain comp, there are often POIs that can facilitate that, right? And so like, you look at an example of a harvester, right? Where for someone that wants to play flex but really lean towards that zone emphasis, and obviously if we get obviously to any team, if they get a favorable zone, they're going to play it. But harvester, gives them a little bit of a decision while still leaning on their bias of zone. Whereas a team like Thermal, we're really good at fighting. We want to stay on the outside, loot up, be, triple purple when we take fights. He used to say triple red, but obviously that's not a thing anymore. That often anymore. Or, Skywest Trials. You can take that. Or if you're a dome team and you want to lose every game, you can land there. And but there's different options for playstyles for POIs. And I think that obviously every map has some extent of that, but it feels like the design of World's Edge really favors it. I think they made it, and we get to Stormpoint, I think they made it better. They like added everything. I think going back to Rodney, I think he took all of those aspects of different playstyles and made it better on Stormpoint. But I think that, when we get into the faults, I have critiques of this specific aspect of map design, but yeah, what do you think about that? Do you feel like they did a good job, or do you think there's things they need to do better with that? Or do you think that's even important? Do you think you should be able to play any play style out of any POI?
Well, being able to play any play style from any POI, that's kind of idealistic, let's be honest. Like,
yeah,
obviously, there are areas that are going to be better at it than others. It's just a fundamental fact of the game. We can't argue that. Even with the changes that are coming up.
Right.
Like, certain play styles will have to be played from certain POIs. But in saying that, I do appreciate that there are a lot of solid universal areas that work with. I don't actually agree with the idea of how certain POIs are built. I think one of the big issues I have with World's Edge, and one of the big problems that prop up, and a lot of people will talk about this, is that the POIs themselves, even ones on Edge, surprisingly have little loot to cover, say, a more Edge-focused playstyle.
Right.
Like, okay, let's look at Geyser. Geyser is at the edge of the map. If it ends at Mirage, you're screwed.
Yeah.
But you're dealing with loot quality that's about the same as, say, taking Survey Epi both together. Survey Epi together is equal to Geyser. That's it. Which is both like sad for Survey Epi and sad for Geyser at the same time.
Right.
But yeah, that's like a fundamental thing. I think like the loot disparity in World's Edge is a fundamental problem. It doesn't stop it from being competitively good. It just makes it a problem that I wish could be solved faster. Because the only way teams really get like overpowered, or not overpowered, but like ridiculously good or quality loot is by taking two POIs. We have the Mirage Fisher, we have the Big Stacks mod, we have Survey Epi just to make it viable.
Yep.
It's just like any of those where they have to take two spaces to even have a chance. And I mean, yeah, I get it, but it also sucks that it has to be a thing, and it makes it a big problem with contests too. Or sorry, contests. I got a lot of flack for saying contest.
I say contest too.
Fun fact: I actually looked up specifically how to say.
I think
contest,
in that example, it is contest, right?
Yeah, it is, because fundamentally, you know what, I'm going on a rant. There are two different ways that you say contest.
Yeah.
Okay. There is contest when you're saying it in, say, like
a noun, right?
Or a fact way, like a noun. Yeah. Contest, and then there's the adjective. Adjective, right? Am I saying it right? Yeah, adjective. Or verb. No, adjective. No, verb. Fuck.
Verb?
Anyways.
I guess it depends. It can be used as a verb,
ways.
Right?
One's as a noun, one is the other fucking one, whatever it is. And when you're saying a contest at a location,
yeah,
then yeah, you say contest. When you say you're contesting somebody, you say contesting. When you're in a contest, you say a contest.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a verb versus noun thing. I'm on your side on that.
I'm so like a verb. That's the word. Fuck.
It
Yeah.
is definitely verb.
It, it made me so mad seeing so many people go like, it's contest. It's like, I said that, bitch.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're definitely right. It's
God.
contest. It's contest when it's a noun. Yeah, but it's definitely
When it's its own
contest.
thing, it's contest. When it's not its own thing, it's contest.
Yeah. Also,
Okay,
it's a
moving on.
video game. We're kind of like, I think we can make our own words for this too. So even
Just
if it
making
isn't,
fun of me, man. Making
yeah.
fun of me. All right.
But so
But
yeah.
you go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, I kind of want to lead into this. I haven't looked in the stats, so I'm
Mm.
curious to check this. But do is are teams, because you mentioned this? There's a big loot disparity, and I haven't really like I've heard this and I've thought about this, but I mean the existence of PVE in Stormpoint and all of these other just like factors for like harvesting like Evo. There's got to be a disparity between getting to purple in on Stormpoint to getting to purple on World's Edge, right? Like there's got to be.
Yeah, there is.
Has anyone put
There
data
is.
together on that? It would be interesting to see it.
Well, I could just. You don't need data for one of them. There's only one place
Yeah,
on
there's
World's
only one
Edge where
PVE, right?
where you can farm PVE.
Yeah,
And guess what? You get extra. You get extra Evo for completing it as well.
yeah. And we're not
You
even taking the fact that
y-
there's like dragons on that map too, which like yeah, we have party balls, but like I don't know, it's just you're getting damage
there's
on the
a
dragon as well. Like
there's a very very specific reason why Dark Zero moved POIs, and it's
yeah,
because there is a very big disparity between how much Evo you get at Sky West and Trials compared to the I don't know, again, fucking Geyser.
do you think
I
they
don't know why
just
I'm picking on
add?
Geyser so much.
Do you think they just add PVE to other areas like prowlers north of Climatizer? Throw them in, throw some spider nest in thermal station. Do you think they just do that, or do you
No,
think
no, I don't agree with that. No,
no?
I think I don't think the issue is the fact that you can farm Evo through the PVE. It's the fact that the PVE comes alongside guaranteed gold knockdowns and gold backpacks and all that.
Yeah,
Because once they took away shields from Sky West and Trials, that took away the shield advantage that I had, but it gave it a completely different advantage, and that's a
yeah,
guaranteed gold item. It's
yeah,
one of the big reasons why Aurora is still playing Lifeline right now, is that you get those guaranteed golds.
yeah.
Now imagine doing that at SkyWest Trials, where you, God, why is no team landing SkyWest Trials played Lifeline? That would be scary. Oh my
It would
God,
be, yeah.
that would
I
be
mean, because
terrifying.
it's a NA team landing there or Apex South.
There's like
I'm
a
still,
reason to play
I listen. I don't care how long
American.
they're in NA. I think Apex South. I'm gonna have to make this a topic of a future episode, but I think Apex South might be the best region. No shade to Apex North, but I think or to NA, but I mean, when you're putting two teams and they're moving to NA and then they're beating them, I don't know. It's not looking good.
Do you want me to give an answer there, or do you want to move on?
We can move on. Look, give me your answer
Okay.
offline for this one because I don't want to take too much of your
Okay.
time.
Okay.
But this is a thought. I'm curious. Everyone in the comments, guess what you think MooreOver's opinion is on it. So I do think that like there needs to be something done with balancing. I'll get to one of my big thoughts on balancing later, towards the end here. But let's move on to the next map. I guess we talked a little bit of the negatives. Are there any other negatives that you would add to World's Edge?
Honestly, I would say nuke Lava Siphon off of the map, but given the Evo change, it's fine.
It's fine, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a
But no,
triple party
nothing
ball
else.
sometimes though, right? Whatever.
True, but still, nah, I'm good. Lava
That's
Siphon's
fair.
fine where it is now.
So we touched a little bit on Olympus. We've talked
Oh boy.
about some of the bads. We've talked about there's absolutely no playable cover in like half the map. Um, there's the I want to harken back to this. You talked about with Rodney about 000 and the importance of having nothing in 000. And I think that whoever he told that was working on Olympus heard that and said, make a huge divot in the ground where everyone can look at it like a bowl on 000. Perfect. And made it worse. Somehow used that to like the opposite effect. I don't know. Do you think they
Okay.
just raise that area and just like make it higher and that fixes half the issues?
I wish I could say it does, but it doesn't. And this got harked on a lot when Olympus was brought back into competitive scrims, and it's not something that's often talked about in like the casual sphere, and it's not a problem in the casual sphere.
Right.
But did you ever hear the complaints about playing from Power Grid?
I did hear the complaints. I mean, I know when it was Oxygen and TSM were contesting pretty heavily when they thought it was going to be a thing.
All right. Well, just for a minute, go ahead and look at Power Grid. If you want to do the edit, just like zoom in on Power Grid or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm giving you editing now.
Wait, I was also saying Power Grid, and Power Grid's this top one, right?
One next to Rift, yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I was thinking of.
Oh, he's doing live editing right now.
Live editing.
Give him a second. Give him a second. Okay.
Is this close enough? Do I need more?
You can do it in post, man.
Enhance.
Enhance. There we go. All right, but yeah, you see Power Grid. Okay. What's next to it? Okay, well that's Rift. How much space is in between that and Rift? Nothing.
Nothing.
Okay. What else is next to it? Let's say they want to go to the west. What's their options? Okay, well docks, a big open space for docks.
Yep.
That is going to be looking right at you. All right. What else? A fight night. Oh, you have to move through fight night or the open area, which can be shot at by fight night.
Yep.
Okay. That's not great. All right, but how about if you want to access the entire south of the map? What do you do?
Yeah, it's just one big funnel.
It's not even a funnel. It's just a death pit because you have the bottleneck to turbine, and you have the sight line of energy depot deal with in both directions. And if you get in these areas, you've played Olympus before. You know that when you get stuck in a fight in these areas, you're probably going to be stuck there for a minute because it's hard to get out.
Yep.
And once the rotations really start on Olympus, and this is kind of the big problem with 0-0-0 on Olympus, is so much of it gets focused on these three areas, and you can see them very clearly. Turbine, Energy Depot, Hammond Labs in the Paradise area, the tunnel, that area. So much of it gets so heavily focused because so much of the map has to go through that exact area to get into the ring in any south zones. Look how many POIs actually have to go through here. We have docks, we have Fight Night, Power Grid, Rift, I think it's called Carrier.
Super Carrier, yep.
Super Carrier. In some situations, Oasis has to go through here. All of those POIs have to go through Turbine, and somebody lands at Turbine. Somebody lands at Energy Depot. There's a team at Hammond Labs, and they're all going to be there. And if they don't rotate quickly, they're going to get caught. This is the bigger problem with Olympus that is not often talked about. Like, yeah, you see the big open spaces, and that's a problem. But the big open spaces aren't nearly as bad as the fact that so many POIs are stuck in this huge, singular, gigantic funnel into that tiny little tunnel that connects Turbine and Hammond Labs.
Yeah, I've always kind of looked at it like a pizza. It's kind of like the whole map is kind of designed like a pizza. And I don't think any of the other maps are designed in the same mentality as Olympus, where it's like, it's all like big, wide POIs on the outside that like, and then kind of smaller POIs. And then like the small center POI would be, name you just said like 7 times. Turbine. And so I think that's where it comes down to, is like, it really is just like one big, the entire map serves as almost a funnel to Hammond Labs and Turbine. And it's like, you're just going to be there, and there's kind of no way around it. And it is kind of exacerbated by the fact that it is just one circle with a bunch of like little tunnels going into it. Like, I think you would almost need to open that whole space up to make this map decent. And then, but the problem is, it doesn't change the fact that, like you said, with Energy Depot, you're in any other map where you're at an Energy Depot, there would be one POI to your west. You'd have one POI there, but you have 2 different POIs that the loot is so dense in Olympus. Like, every one of those POIs is small, but they're giving you good stuff. Like you can get golden guns out of Fight Night, and you can get there's a guaranteed purple or gold armor, or not armor, but purple or gold item up in zone names docks. So like, if you get really good loot out of most of these POIs, and they're pretty fast to loot. Like, even docks is like a larger POI. Doesn't take that long to loot really any POI in Olympus, aside from like maybe hydroponics or like phase driver, because you're just sitting there and like hitting the thing over and over again. But like,
Yeah, that's entirely different. I don't even think we need to discuss that one.
no, it
Phase
doesn't need to be
diversification.
said anything.
It's it's pretty straightforward there. To stop that. Anyways.
It's the fact that the same team can hit it over and over again. Why is it not like the other thing at Lifeline's clinic? You just hit it once and you get it once, and then another team can hit it or something. Yeah, that's crazy. So yeah, I think it's like interesting that the map is so, especially on the northern part of the map, like northwest, it's so compact, but also like loot dense. So like you do have like, you can fit a lot of teams there hypothetically, but you almost don't want to leave your POI. Like it's kind of scary to leave your POI on Olympus, especially from that section of the map. And I don't really know what you do there aside from like a big overhaul if you wanted to make it competitive, aside from just like saying deal with it. I mean, I think that a lot of those POI, like it's just gonna, it really be different. It changes your play style because they're almost holding each other in check from like rotating out.
If you don't mind, actually,
Yeah.
if you could go back to World's Edge, I want to show something to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like another fundamental thing that shows pops up with Olympus that World's Edge kind of showcases is if we look at the choke points. A lot of the choke points on World's Edge, sure, they lead towards POIs, but they don't lead directly into POIs. A lot of them don't.
Yep.
So you usually have some space in between. Say like the Lava Siphon one, you have like the area with the buildings
right
just north of Lava Siphon. Obviously, we still have ones that go directly in, like the Geyser Choke or the Big Mod Choke.
Yep.
But a lot of these chokes usually have areas around them that you can work around. And once you get through the choke, you have like the ability to choose what direction you want to be in. You don't have to immediately go into a POI. If I want to leave thermal and I'm at staging, I can go up towards the Mirage side, maybe cut in between, do what I want there, or maybe cut through the middle of Harvester and staging on the right. I could do with Tree, I can go through the tunnel and just follow the tracks the entire time. Like there's options.
Right.
But when we're on Olympus, and if we go back over to Olympus, sorry, I'm making you go back and forth now. For Olympus, look how many of the chokes are leading directly into a POI. Obviously, we have the one that leads directly between Hammond Labs and Turbine. That connects directly. All of the chokes of Energy Depot. And literally,
I mean, Terminal is a POI. The choke is a POI for Terminal.
For Turbine?
For Terminal. Down by Phase Driver.
That's literally a choke. Yeah, Terminal is a choke. I forget about Terminal. Yeah, Terminal is quite literally a choke. We'll talk about that more in
it's
like a big fundamental thing is if you want to leave, say, Oasis, let's say Oasis on the far left side.
Yep.
And you go and loot like the eastern build area before you go down
right
to like a south zone. What are you leading towards? Oh, well, you're leading towards estates. I guess you're going to estates. That's just it. Like once you enter into that area of estates, everyone in estates is gonna kind of probably see you because of how much open space there is. Same thing with. Actually, no. I do want to give a quick moment to give a good example. The area just past the Phase Gateway that leads towards Grow Towers, like that choke.
Yep.
To the east of Hammond. Yeah, that one is actually pretty good because you have like the giant hole and everything around it. This is This is a pretty good space with enough space around it. I actually really like the south side of Olympus. This is like.
I agree with you. I think the south side of Olympus is really nice.
Outside of like Solar Array being like a very heavy spot right here, like I like everything around. I love the north spot of Solar Array. I love Ivory Pass. Orbital Cannon, just Orbital Cannon. I hate that it sucks because it's I love this space so much.
Yeah. I do.
Like
I think
the Bonsai Plaza,
maybe buff the loot a little bit, and Orbital's fine. It's like the only place that doesn't have good
how
loot.
Far it is from everything else. That's like a big.
That's
a big issue
yeah.
with it.
That's fair.
And yeah, I love the South Side Olympus. It's great. It's a great example of how you should be designing these maps. And then you go back to the north side and you wonder what happened.
Yeah, it does seem like
why did they cut off half of it?
It seems like they got like kind of like, I don't want to say lazy, but like towards the end they were just like, yeah, it kind of feels like at the end they were like they had done the whole like south and the east, and then they got there and they're like, I don't really want to build anything in the middle here. Can we just put it all together? And like you could very easily fix it. I now that I'm thinking about it more, you could barely like I'm saying this as not a software developer, but you or a map designer, but like in my head, the best way to fix it would be, I mean, they're segmented, right? Like you look at Doc's Fight Night, you look at Carrier, you look at Oasis and Power Grid. They're all like very clearly linearly segmented by like little bridges, and then you kind of could
Very much
just
so, yeah.
like remove the bridges, back them up a little bit, and fill it with space in between those POIs, and it'd probably just infinitely make the map better. The other thing I think you'd want to do is just like that middle like turbine. I was going to say this too, is like you can't use a good amount of Legends utility once you're in there either. So like once you commit to going through those chokes, there's a lot of Legends you can't do anything with. Like you can't use Bang ult, you can't use Gibby ult, you can't use a Valk ult. So it's like once you're in there, you're just kind of you're there. Like you're there's no using, like there's 3 Legends that are basically useless for getting out of that situation. I mean, obviously they have their other utility, but like that's kind of like it kind of sucks when like as if you're playing that Legend and like a big chunk of the map that you almost always have to go through in the game, you can't use your utility.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. I do actually want to. Do you mind if I give you like what I would do with Olympus?
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Okay. Because you had like the expanding idea, and sure. But I think the biggest thing, and I think the hugest thing you could do to make Olympus feel better to rotate from, especially from the north side.
Yep.
And I said like stamp the ground in Kings Canyon.
Yep.
I'm gonna do the opposite. I want that mountain to be bigger.
Ooh.
Stay with me. Stay with me. Stay with me. Okay. Not like fundamentally like make it bigger, but expand it. Take it out and make new pathways through it that isn't just this funnel straight into turbine.
Well, like
Make
over
it
the
so
mountain.
that there's I would probably take out turbine itself and then make more spaces inside the mountain itself.
I like
Like
that.
have more lanes that say power grid can move through directly that allow it to get past. And then expanding the mountain all the way out to say like Hammond Labs and making more spaces around that that's open-ended and make more of the chokes focus around like the phase path
Yeah.
would help a lot in taking that away. And then make the chokes less centralized and break them up into more specific lines, like the Energy Depot line or
Right.
the Annex line.
I mean,
The Annex line is like the giant wall that splits estates in Hammond,
yeah.
like that line. Those ones, make those the choke point focuses instead of this giant circle in the middle.
I'm almost wondering, like, I'm almost imagining the way you're describing it. Maybe not to this exact way, but like almost like a command center. In that, like, instead of having without the god zip lines, but like kind of like the command center where there's like walkthroughs and stuff.
No, I wouldn't say command. It would still be like an open-ended, like you'd be able to fly over it and everything.
Okay.
I still think that. Okay, a better way to explain it, instead of it being one giant mountain, it's more like a split up set of mountains.
Okay.
Like a bit more broken up, so that there's like the ability to create these like artificial lanes in the middle.
Yeah.
So it's not so much command center, because like one thing I specifically harp on command center, we can do that when we get to Storm Point, is the problem with command center itself and how it's so isolated from the rest. And funnily enough, you can kind of say the same thing about turbine. Funnily.
Yeah.
Oh,
Funnily.
I thought about
Good
that.
joke. Good pun.
Funnily, yeah. But that was not on purpose. But you know what? There you go. Make a short out of that. There you go. Anyways,
I like that. I think you're right.
With that would be like the biggest thing. Like just make an Energy Depot side choke, make a Annex side choke, and just kind of slice it through the middle like an X and break up the mountain to allow space in between.
Yeah.
Do that, and that would help a lot. You don't even have to change the POIs themselves, because once that central area really opens up and makes more options, these teams will have more ability. I'd also probably make Rift, like, make the space between Rift and Energy Depot closed up so people can walk through that. That'd probably help too.
Yeah, that's fair.
So Power Grid just has ability to go east.
Yeah, I think of the maps that I'd want to see in competitive, Olympus is at the top. I think it'd be exciting. I also think the other thing I was recommending, I was like, if you want a lore reason to make more ground cover, it's flying. Just be like, oh, it got hit with a meteor shower, and just have a bunch of craters with like rock cover in these open green spaces. Just like,
see, I actually do disagree with that part, because we talk so much about the open cover and how much of a problem it is, but I think that if the rotations were just fundamentally better across the board,
You would have
and
less
there
like,
wasn't
need.
there wasn't such a huge problem with how people can rotate out from the north side, I don't think the open space would be that big of a deal.
Okay,
Like
I see your
obviously
point.
it'd be a problem, but like if you have a Bangalore and or hell, if you use Rampart or if you use Caustic or whatever you want to use, you can create cover for yourself, and that's a huge deal in the current meta. And I do
Yeah,
think you'd still be able to use that pretty fundamentally. I think if they did any changes that made Olympus viable for competitive, we'd still see Bangalore being used just because
100%.
you can
Or
create your
cat.
own cover. And it'd still be pretty good. There's a lot of spaces in Storm Point where there is barely any cover. Talk about
Yeah,
old fish farms for a minute.
yeah.
Jeez.
Jeez.
Talk about the space before Down Beast exists.
Yeah.
What the hell?
I'd say
There's
I'd
a
say the
lot.
only place that I think does definitely need cover on, because I think you're right. For the most part, Olympus is like you can get as long as like the rotations are good. The only place I think that it does need more cover is between Gardens and Lifeline Clinic, because that section is
Gardens and Life.
like if you're going from Grow
Maybe.
Towers to Clinic, if you're going to Gardens to Clinic, or even from like the like top right like thing, there's just a lot of like massive openness. Not even, I don't think it even needs a lot of cover, but like adding like one or two. I don't know if you know, there's like next to Estates, there's like right north of Estates, there's that little like
The
there's
villa.
no, well there is that, but there's like though that'd be a good idea. Just like one of those little like buildings, right? Just putting one of those in there. There's like two door, nothing inside kind of buildings.
Oh
Or
wait, I think
there's that
you
little
mean like the
divot.
bike shop.
Yeah,
The
there's
bike
like the
shop?
little there's like it's next to that. There's like a little divot in the ground. There's like two little pillars, and there's typically like two crates. There's two crates in there. And
Oh,
it's
you
just like a
mean one of
little
the
divot
okay, I know
north
what you
of
mean, yeah.
Estates. Just like put like one
Mhm.
or two of those in the open there so that like a team could play. I mean, it wouldn't be great cover, but like it'd be enough that like if a team's trying to move up on Clinic or something, because I mean, Clinic can sort of like can carry a good amount of teams, but like if it's a Clinic zone and you're trying to get into Clinic and you're late, like it's pretty hard to cross those open gaps. I guess a good extended cat wall might be able to do it, but it's pretty rough. I think that'd be the only place I'd probably add like cover if you needed to. But we can move on just for the sake of time here, move on to Storm Point, and then we'll close out with the map that we probably don't have a lot of good things to say about.
Storm Point. Let's go.
Storm Point, I'm just going to jump out the gate with the thing that I think I like the most is that Storm Point over every other map has prioritized like, well, for one, it prioritized competitive, and we can see that through. But I think the big thing that they did is like it made play styles unique. Like POIs really do emphasize play styles, and I think there's room to make it better and like balance that. But it doesn't come from the map design itself. It comes from like loot balancing and a couple other things that we'll get into in a little bit. But overall, from the map design standpoint, the POIs do heavily favor the type of play style you want to play. And I think that's a cool element of the game, because I do like when you're following your teams, I like that there are predominantly edge teams. I like there are predominantly zone teams. There are flex teams. There's, these there's variation, right? Based on like different skills and benefits that they have. And there's also like legend variability. Like the fact that like Command Center, I know you're going to have some bad things to say about it. One of the things I like about Command Center is that it does make Valk just like really good out of that POI comparatively to other POIs. And I like that. I like when POIs can incentivize legends. As long as you don't have to crutch them, but like I like that when it's like, oh, maybe Valk isn't, of course now is not a good example for the current meta, but when Valk is like not played as much, she's still really good out of Command Center. And I think that's an interesting thing. That's one of the big
Sure.
things. I also like that I do like PvE. I think there's definitely flaws. I do like it, but I also really like the introduction of grav cannons. It does make rotation a little bit faster, and but it's linear, so there's not like workarounds, right?
Mhm.
So you do have like these like faster ways to get around when it's straightforward rotations, and they're really only to be used when it's not risky, if that makes sense. Like you're only using grav cannons when like you just need to go from point A to point B fast, and you're at a point where it doesn't make sense anyone will be there, or if you're like running from a team
I
or
don't know.
something.
I've seen a few people take some wild ass
That's
gravity
true. I
cannons.
have seen
I'll be
some
honest.
wild grab cannons, but
There's
like
been some
yeah,
interesting ones.
but generally like like it's a pretty good. I like the mechanic. I think it's good because it's not super easily abusable like some other things can be. So I think that's a cool idea. And then the tridents are obviously really good, but and I think they're a good addition. But I do at the same time think like placement is pretty definitely benefits certain POIs, which I think should be the case. But I think there's maybe some POIs that don't necessarily need them. I don't know that Mill necessarily needs one, but that's personal opinion. Yeah. What? No, lightning rod needs one. How else will they get around the map?
Oh no, the horror.
How will,
No, I get
how will lightning rod please just give it to Jesus,
slap it in the middle of Cascades.
give it to
just do it, it'll be
Stormcatcher,
funny.
please.
No, just put it in Cascades. Just
Yeah,
right in the middle. Right where it connects to Jurassic. Just slap it right there. See the hell that ensues.
No.
Cedo, Jurassic, Cascades,
Oh my
Command, they're all
God.
going for it. Let's
That
go.
would be
Throw down for
so
the car.
funny. That would be so funny. Actually, I'm not actually that opposed to just putting it dead center, command center, Cascade, Stormcatcher. Just
It'd
put
be
it right there.
stupid, but I'd love it.
Just let's see him fight for it. Yeah. So those are my overall first thoughts. I'm not sure if this is good or bad, but going into like POIs being good for certain play, I think it's just a Giga Chad move to give Zoo Station that balloon. Because I don't know if you've like stress test that, but you can, with that balloon, you can get to the prowlers outside of North Pad. You can get to the prowlers outside of launch site, and you can get like as far as like Cascade Falls. Like you can go
Yep.
so far, and it has like I was talking about priority, like the high priority, low priority, no priority, and like I call it green, the green zone, right? For high priority, where you can get to. And I mean, Zoo Station has the biggest green zone of any POI on any map, I think. If you really if you factor that balloon in. What are your thoughts on that? Is that broken?
It's incredibly funny. It's incredibly funny that the hard zone teams that used to land at High Point had to get bullied out of Zoo Station, even though it's practically the exact same playstyle nowadays.
Yeah,
It was really hard watching full English have to contests. I can say the word. Don't bully me.
You're doing great.
Have to contest at Zoo Station, even though that used to be like the hard zone POI, but now it's like fundamentally because the loot got so upgraded.
Yep.
Like I've never leave that POI without like 6 bats.
Yes, it's amazing.
How good.
I think it's the best POI. I mean, sorry, no, Lightning Rod's still broken, but I do think that because Lightning Rod just gets it when later, just get it right after if they even need it. But I think it's easily the second best POI, if not the best on the map.
God, I wish I could say Pylon's the best POI, but yeah, Lightning Rod's the best POI.
Yeah,
I have to agree. It is what it is, but
Pylon suffers from neighbor syndrome. I think. No, it doesn't.
I don't agree with that.
I think
it's Pylon, baby.
It's like low ground on a map that's so heavily high ground focused. It's just
but is Jurassic gonna fight you?
No, you're fighting Jurassic, but but Jurassic's gone. Jurassic's not gonna be there.
Are they gonna be willing to sit there and watch you run up to them? Nah, they're fucking out. You're fine.
Yeah.
Is just Coastal Camp gonna bother you?
It just feels weird. It feels like a weird POI to leave. Pylon does.
No, you're right. You're right. It definitely has like a weird quality because literally all 3 paths out of it lead to a POI.
And they're high grounds, so you have to kind of like walk out of a bowl. So it's like it's kind of weird. I mean, it's not bad. It's definitely a really good POI, but I think Cedo's better in my opinion than Pylon.
Cedo?
Maybe that's a hot take, but
I can agree to disagree. I do like Cedo, but I don't think it's better than Pylon.
That's fair.
Just in general.
So what would you say are the good things if you were like highlights, biggest things that you think are good about this map?
Again, I spent like 40 minutes on this. Okay. Storm Point's S tier. It's just S tier.
It's so good.
It's been said. It's known. I don't need to explain this. It's just everything about it works. The space, the rotation options, the PvE, the tridents being way better on here than they were on Olympus. Like the POIs being pretty large overall, but still decently well spread with loot.
Yeah.
Just everything about it is just
nuke checkpoint.
Never seen a bird kiss their lips, huh? Anyways.
Nuke checkpoint. Anyways. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
I used to play CCE scrims, or I still kind of do.
Mm-hmm.
But All I know is every time that we had a checkpoint zone, you just we were landing Zoo Station. You just couldn't get there. Oh, other thing is hopefully this will be fixed. Dropships, fixed dropships. Dropships are, ooh, I
Oh,
mean,
you want to get into that now?
no, we sorry,
Okay, okay.
I had to
That's
say
a
new
big one.
checkpoint, and then it just got I was going down a tangent. I don't like checkpoint chokes.
That's a
That was
big
the,
one.
but I think checkpoint's necessary. I think it's good. Yeah. So sorry, highlights.
Wait,
Let's
do you
give
not
top
like
three.
Command Center? Or do you not like Checkpoint? Real quick, just
I
make
don't like
sure.
checkpoint.
You don't like Checkpoint?
No, I don't like checkpoint. Checkpoint's just
I,
this weird bubble, and when zones pull there, like every east like team on the east side of the map, like you just have like if you're not in checkpoint, like I don't know how to put it. Like every time a zone ends in checkpoint, for one, you barely can know if it's even going to end in checkpoint or if it's just like somehow a north bad or down beast and pulling to like that little outside of the zone because it always seems to pull like over there when it looks like it's going to pull checkpoint. But like even
Mhm.
when it does pull in checkpoint, like it always just it's just a massacre on one of those chokes, and it ends with like such like I feel like it ends with a lot less teams when it's a checkpoint zone or like a round checkpoint. And it's typically because like teams have to hedge their bets. Is it a North Patters down beast or is it an inside checkpoint? And if you're wrong, you just lost the game. There's nothing around, no way you can nothing you can do if you're wrong. That's my thoughts on it. But
Okay, I can understand that. I can understand that point. I don't know if I agree with it, but I do understand where it comes from.
I feel like I
It's
have
actually an
bias
interesting
to
thing.
it. I feel like I
It's
have
actually an
bias.
interesting thing to think about because it's kind of been a more recent problem with Stormpoint
Yeah,
is how checkpoint endgames specifically go through.
yeah,
Because if you didn't know, before like season 19, checkpoint was just never an end zone ever. Like it couldn't be a thing. It may like end like very very south of it, but
right.
it never ended in checkpoint. More recently, we see a lot more checkpoint heavy zones. We have the stuff like the ones that end at the green bills just south of height. The absolutely devilish one where it ends on the cannon by down beast. I still don't understand how that one happens. And then a lot more like Ferrari poles. Obviously, Ferrari's always been a thing, but it can end a lot closer to checkpoint than it has before. And that's a
Yeah,
brand new thing for Stormpoint. It's kind of a newer change, and
yeah, and
I
it's
can definitely see it make it feel like checkpoint is worse because it's definitely not the best end game POI.
it's
I'll be
also
honest.
hard if you're coming into checkpoint and you don't have a Valk. It's very hard to come into anywhere around checkpoint without a Valk, especially and with
True.
old Valk, like prior to the new like what is it 15 or 50% the new height increase.
Mhm.
You couldn't get over those, so it was just kind of like evac couldn't get over, Valk pre season 20 couldn't get over. So now it's like now it's better, but then you still have to kind of play Valk, so it's like a little bit weird. But yeah, sorry. Other highlights that you have before we get into the negatives, which I think it's mostly highlights, right? I mean, it's mostly good things that I mean, like we talked about the 000. You talked about the 000 in your video, and Jurassic just is a really good way of mitigating that. And obviously, it's not even just Jurassic that like kind of does some of that damage control. Even like the zip line, I forget exactly what they call it, but like the Alpine Lift, I think it's called on some things, and then I don't know, it has other
Oh,
names
you
on other
mean the
things.
zip buildings?
Yeah, north of the Mountain Lift. That's between Command Center and
Yeah, mountain
Jurassic.
lift.
Like that's that area also does some of that
Mhm.
covering to like kind of reduce the amount of fights while you're rotating through. I think overall, like it's just the design is like pretty flawless. It's I mean, there's very small amounts of negative things.
Okay, you won't believe me, but I actually do have a specific point there
Okay.
uh, of criticism. And it's very funny. There's one specific spot, one teeny tiny specific spot that I believe Stormpoint suffers from. And that is that little river area just north of Jurassic, that tiny little river space between the two cannons,
Yeah.
right next to
Yeah.
Mountain Lift, just south of Cascades. That one specific area, I think, is I wouldn't say it's like the worst design thing in the world. Obviously, it's you kind of have to deal with it in how Stormpoint's designed. It has to be there, but it
Right.
is probably the one that suffers the most from the Kings Canyon issue, where you just have
Right.
this space where if you're stuck in it, you're kind of fucked.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't
That's
do
fair.
much. Like if there's a team in Cascades, you can't go that way. If there's a team in Tunnel, you can't go that way. The water is wide open. You're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
There's It's very easy to get around the terrain in here, so it's kind of hard. And more often than not, people are going to be rotating through here. So if you get stuck here, you're going to get run into eventually.
I think that's why
Like
most teams just opt to like go north and go into Cascades before coming down, just because it's like I'm not going down there. I think I've seen so many teams where they're coming from the east side of the map, and they're just like I'm gonna go up to Cascade first, check for teams, and then I'm gonna go left to Spiders, and rather than like going down through, or they'll even double back down to the Dragon Ball or whatever. That's so interesting.
I do agree that like it's not nearly
It's
as
not nearly
bad
as
as
critical as King's
Kings
Canyon, but it's
Canyon
definitely annoying. You're
because
right.
yeah, Kings Canyon obviously half the map is the canyon. It's kind of the point, but
Yeah.
yeah,
I have a similar
you can't
problem on this
avoid
map, which is between Cedo and Mill.
it.
That river right there between Cedo and Mill, like it is just. I've seen so many end zones where you play out of Cedo and then it'll pull towards like that hill, and you're basically just like going to die. Like there's just nothing you do.
I get that.
And the right side of high ground on that ridge line between Mill and like Bean or like the No Name or whatever, that ridge is like if you're on the right side of that ridge towards Cedo side, it's pretty unplayable without like a Rampart or something. Even with like a Watson, it's pretty difficult. So there's not a lot of like playable space once it pulls on that side. But yeah, that's definitely, I think those like little things. But it's good. It's a good map when we're critiquing like little fractions of the map versus massive center points.
I do actually want to point out, it's because how you specifically talk about that makes me want to think about something. How important or how much do you weigh like the competitive value of a map based on how you can rotate from it in the mid to late game? Because that specific area is really hard to rotate from in the mid to late game. So I want to hear your opinion on that.
So I think that one of the, to harken back to World's Edge and Olympus, I think one of the biggest defining factors that separates those two maps, because if I'm not mistaken, they're pretty similar in size. I think one of the biggest
Roughly, yeah.
defining factors for me is that for Olympus, the negative part of the first half of the game for Olympus is the strength on the back half, if that makes sense. Like, so like the northwest of the map on Olympus, and let me pull this up real quick. The northeast or northwest, right? All those clumped together places. If a zone ends there, I feel like those end zones are often more interesting or can be more interesting than the like zones in the south part of the map. And the reason I think that is because there's just more cover to cover play. There's more space to be taken. Whereas in the early game, you're so close together that it's a detriment, right? Because you can just walk over to the next one, or you can get looked at. So I think that's what World's Edge has as an absolute strength, is that it has, I think, the best consistency in end games. And like you can play pretty much like there's like we talked about, thermal station, and it's hard to get in and stuff like that. But generally speaking, like the end games in World's Edge, I think I should say the rotations in mid to late game in World's Edge are, I think, better than Storm Points. I think, like, generally speaking, you can get into areas better, or it could be just like, the fact that people have played it longer. But I do think like a big part of it is like the size of the map. It understands cover to cover. It understands like the size of POIs and like how to coexist, and like we talked about with like trials or stacks mod, even the places where it's hard to get into, you could still get there, and there's a lot of playable space. And I think that that's something that makes World's Edge stand out over Stormpoint. And I think Stormpoint, is still kind of a little bit better because it has those little pockets that it suffers. Like I was talking about with Checkpoint, where like the late game in Checkpoint, not very good. You have issues with like more god spots. I think Stormpoint suffers with more god spots than World's Edge does, which is is probably a facet of like the mid to late game rotation options. The open water areas make it kind of tough, And then you do have just like open spaces. Like I've seen like in ALGS, you have some end zones where it's just like, well, you know which team is going to win like way before. Just because it's like, well, how is anyone possibly going to cross that gap and the zone's going to pull into the open? You know, it's just like, I think that happens a lot more on Stormpoint than World's Edge.
Okay. I should have rephrased my question a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because what I want to specifically bring up is there was a game during the regional finals for EMEA.
Okay.
It was the winning game for Aurora, and we kind of was getting the idea. Oh yeah, Aurora is going to win this. They're on the God Rock. They're going to win it. It ended right on that bean hill.
Right.
But
and I didn't get to watch that
like
one. Which was where on the Bean Hill did they land? Was it like
so right by the it ended right on that mountain, right on the
yeah. Okay. Yep.
north side of the mountain.
And was
So
it Cito side
right
that it was
there.
pulling over to, or was it from Millside or like
Millside?
Okay.
Millside, north of that mountain, right on top of the hill. And as much as like it was fundamentally clear that Aurora was probably going to win this, I think the space of water where teams had to fight their way in to take that space, I think that was one of the most engaging things to watch out of that match. And I want to the reason why you ended up bringing it up and want to point it out is those like hard to reach areas that you have to claw for anything you can get. I think those are some of the most engaging. This is coming from a viewer. Real quick, I just want to point this out. This is a viewer's perspective.
right.
No, I
mean that's fair.
Sucks as a player, but as a viewing perspective, watching, I think it was like Made in Heaven. Who else was there? Navi. Full English, all of them in the Cito side, having to try and claw for whatever space they have, using their smokes and utility and everything they had to try and just get everything they can to get the one spot, was really engaging. It's a similar thing with World's Edge too, where the train tracks going towards Thermal Station, like that specific area.
Yeah,
you'll see a lot of teams on the train track side, but like Harvester and Tree, they'll claw their way through all the way up until the fence area.
Yep.
Fight until this space is literally no longer possible, and there's just one team standing that gets to just sit in the blood that they've just fought for. And it's probably some of the most interesting mid to late games that you can watch, even if they're not always like the best end games. And that's kind of what I wanted to point out here, is that even though, that water kind of sucks to play in,
it makes for fascinating things. That's a good point.
That hill is so much fun to watch people climb.
That's true. That's so much fun. That's a good point.
It's kind of the same with like not Stormcatcher, but like Thunderwatch zones.
Yeah.
Where everyone has to like fight into this hill, and it's like everybody just clawing for that space. Yep. I love that. It's like one of my favorite moments in Apex. Like anytime it's like a dense urban environment where you have to like have utter chaos right at the end, or it's just like the fight to just get anything.
I actually you brought up Stormcatcher. I had a Challenger Circuit game, and E8 was in our lobby, and they're running Challenger Circuit first week. They rolled everybody, but we got a second place that game, and then they got like third. So I was like, we outplaced them once. I'll take that credit. I'll take that credit to my grave. It did happen later that our teammate Loba queued down the command center tunnel by accident, directly to where E8 was sitting at the low ground. And so if you look up E8 montages from Challenger Circuit, he's on there. That was very funny. Anyway, so any negative thoughts? Obviously, this is like a really good map. I don't have a whole lot of negative things to say. My negatives come from like general negative things for the maps, so I'll save that until the very end. Are there any negatives that you would take away, like things that could be used to make better out of this map?
Kind of funny. Like we already mentioned command center. Like obviously, my command center.
Oh yeah, you got beef with command center.
It's one of those areas in a map where it feels just once you're in it, and nothing else. Matters, because you literally cannot perceive anything that is happening. It's command center. The world around you is gone. Whether you go to the height of command center or the bottom, doesn't matter. You're in command center, and you get to deal with it.
That's a good point.
But in a way, I kind of love command center.
I do too. I do really like command center.
I know it's stupid, but I do really like Command Center's fundamental idea. And if it had like a bit more of an open-ended, maybe like the gateways were instead like open paths with like maybe different lanes to work with, I think it would be a lot better. As well as just the height having just more options to move out of. I
Yeah.
didn't put it in the Storm Point video, but Rodney actually really talked about how much the height area of Command Center, he kind of dropped the ball on it a bit by making it have only one way in or out,
Yeah.
or at least to walk in and out. And he talked about a lot, like if he had to go back and remake it, he'd put different avenues for the height to get out of. And I think that's like a
Yeah.
really important thing is if Command Center just had like a little bit more openness to it, just break down the walls just a little bit.
Yeah. It's
would
tough
do a
because you
lot.
can't give too much to top command center because then you don't want to give them sight lines, I think is the main reason.
You want to know the one idea I would have, especially with like the command height?
Okay.
Make a staircase on the right side of it.
Oh, that goes
That
out to
goes
like
down-
in between.
Yeah, in between Thunderwatch and Stormcatcher. And
I
make
like
it like
that.
a closed off thing so you can't like shoot. You can see through it, but you can't like do a lot of shooting through it.
Yeah.
I think that'd be like the big thing.
I like that,
maybe
actually.
make it like glass or something.
Yeah.
That way you can see what's going on, but you can't shoot. Because that would be a ridiculous ultimate height if you could shoot from
Yeah.
that.
Be a long stairway, but I think you're right. I think that'd be pretty good.
Or like just a zip, like either or.
Yeah. And no,
Just something.
I like that a lot, actually. I mean, you can make it a variation, right? Like a little scaffoldings and stuff.
Just something to like break it open. That'd be like
Yeah.
the biggest.
I think
change
I
I'd
think
wanna
that would be a
see
good change up.
on Stormpoint. Yeah, that's about it. Otherwise, S tier.
Again, another good sign when it's like the critiques are just like, yeah, add a staircase to the map, and that's the only issue. It's probably a pretty good map then. All
Well,
right.
There'd be more to do in Command Center, but yeah, that'd be like the thing I'd think of.
Yeah. So now we gotta address the elephant in the room here. I'll kick this off here.
Okay, go ahead.
They stated, Rodney stated the 000 concept, right? And then they released this map and they were like, what if we just did the opposite of that? What if we
Promenade, baby?
What if we took the fact that
bad.
everyone has to go through the center and made it so that it's really easy to fight every team in the lobby here? We know that in the mid game, we'll make sure there's nobody in end zone because we'll make sure that 10 teams die in one POI. I don't even think the zip rails are, honestly, legitimately, I think you could maybe move the zip rails a little bit or maybe reduce the movement speed a little bit of zip rails. I don't think the zip rails are the problem. I literally think Promenade is the only issue. I think if you just open Promenade up and you just Jurassify it or landslide it.
Strongly disagree. Oh my god, no.
Oh, I can't wait. I mean,
cut you off.
that's fair.
I'm
Let's hear
sorry. Okay, obviously Promenade. Oh my god,
it. It's
Promenade.
so bad.
Oh,
It's so bad.
I feel really bad talking about Broken Moon because like in general, I want to make sure most of the talk that I do on maps are positive because I fully recognize how much work
So
goes
much
into
work.
just a quarter of this map.
Yeah, and it is a beautiful map. It looks really nice.
It is a beautiful map. And there's people that worked literally years of their life to make this map and put everything in their all to it. And I want to appreciate that and I want to respect that.
Yeah.
But god damn it, I fucking hate Broken Moon. So bad. Not both competitively, both casually. I just don't understand what happened with Broken Moon.
I will say
Promenade is so bad.
Yeah. I will say I do like a lot of the POIs individually.
Okay.
Do we disagree?
Yes, that's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. I personally like a lot of the POIs like individually. I do think that there are some of the buildings that they used have really weird angles to them. Like specifically those ones that they have like the two doors on the top and then the roofs are angled and there's two door on the bottom and a little room in the bottom. Like those buildings are pretty bad. I think they should just swap those assets out for like, I don't know, Yoinka building from World's Edge or something and just put them there. But other than that, I like the general, I like Breaker Wharf a lot. I like the Foundry. I think that's a really cool end zones. End zones on the Foundry are really fun. I like the circular buildings. I think they make for some really interesting like peeking and stuff like that, and play with angles. And I do think those two buildings, like Atmo Station, backup Atmo, I like those buildings. So I do think there's a lot of like good POIs. Terraformer is interesting. I think there's decent things about it. It's, it's okay. But like a lot of the side POIs, I like a lot. I like Production Yard. I just wish that the rest of the map made it so that you could have healthy end games in these POIs, which they just don't. I'll leave it to you to convince me.
Okay. All of the POIs suck. They're just I don't like any of them. Okay. Look, this is I need to talk like a fundamental thing. Okay.
Yep.
Broken Moon is designed around the zip rail idea, having these
Right.
fast zips that you can get across the entire map with. And a problem that gets created by having all these super fast zip rails is that you need spaces that are big enough to house all these rails.
Right.
So that means that every single POI on Broken Moon is 3 times the size of any other POI that has ever come before it.
Right. That makes sense.
It is insane how long it takes to loot one POI. It is even like the smaller ones. Like I think there's only one POI where you can, or 2 POIs that you can loot it in a decent space, like alpha base stasis. That's it.
Yeah.
I think those are the only 2 where you can finish it off and go like, oh, hey, that's not okay. Sorry, I'll add Divide, that one too. Those
I like
3
Divide, yeah.
are the ones where like, okay, I'm looted up, I'm good to go. And you know what? Those actually give good loot.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I'll give them credit there. Those ones, they get the job done. But those are the only 3 where you can reasonably finish them off in like a minute and a half. If you're landing at Foundry, you're going to be there for a good 2 to 3 minutes before you are done looting it, if you want to loot it all.
Do you think that they could fix that issue just by, like, obviously we have these big POIs now, right? Like, that's not going to change. But do you think that they could, like, fix it by just having the loot, higher value loot, more condensed on the POI, and then having, like, smaller loot, like, scattered, so that's, like, if you really want to loot the rest, you can, but you know exactly where the lanes are? Like, do you think they could just make it, like, more streamlined lanes of looting on those bigger POIs so that, like, from a competitive standpoint, or even in ranked, you're just like, okay, I land here and I loot this way, and that way, like, obviously it wouldn't be just like, you know, dropping loot in like in a line like a trail, but like, you know, like for Foundry, for example, like you just make like the middle section a good amount of loot right there, and then you have like the front that like points, you know, that way you just have a lot of loot right there, and then like the rest of it's kind of like not worth it if you're playing from a competitive standpoint. And that way it's just like, okay, we land from a competitive ranked, we land and we get the loot we need because it's all spawned better and more condensed. And then that way it doesn't really matter as much that the POIs are bigger. That's my thought, at least. I wonder, because I feel like that would be a better and easier change than like obviously redesigning a map. But like, is that enough, you think?
No. Just no. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No,
okay,
it's fair.
I like the idea. I like the idea. To give it like the good ballpark try. Yes, centralizing a lot of loot and making the areas around these gigantic POIs more like no names, in essence, would fix that one.
The one issue. You're right. There's a lot more.
Specific problem.
Exactly.
So yes, that would indeed solve a problem. I will admit to that. Yes, it would. That's great. Let's talk about those zip rails. So we mentioned it a little earlier about the issue with how jump towers created a lot of third-party problems. We talked about how like smaller maps tend to have an issue with that, or funneling teams into a single area really makes it hard to keep people from just coming into like this hodgepodge mess of third parties. Well, now imagine if literally everybody on the map has to follow a linear line in the same direction on the exact same zip rails that can get you across this gigantic map incredibly quickly. That if you're not using them, you're going at half the speed at best.
All times. Yeah.
It like Valk won't keep up with it. evac won't keep up with it.
Yep.
If you're on a zip, let's say you're at Foundry and you take that zip right in front and you go from the building and then you can get to Promenade within like what, 30, 40 seconds?
Yeah, it's pretty fast.
It's incredibly fast.
I do think
And
that's one big thing.
everybody's
Like,
doing it.
why are I do think that's one of the biggest flaws that I have an issue with, is that there shouldn't be zip rails. I don't have a problem inherently with zip rails, but I don't think they should be used to go through the middle of the map. I think they should, like, going into how I would fix that specifically, because like ultimately I think Broken Moon is a map that can be fixed. I think the biggest things that they have to do is like the loot thing, and then I do think, like, obviously Promenade, just destroy it. But then, like, I think just get rid of every zip rail that isn't on the outsides of the map, because it's like, okay, if a zone is pulling to, somewhere central, or let's just say core, right? Because that's a big POI everyone knows, and we're in Foundry. Well, I can't just go through Promenade, right? I can't take that zip that you just mentioned that gets me to Promenade, because that would get me, like, pretty close very fast. But what I can do is I can, take those zip rails that go to Production Yard. I could pick the one that goes to the outside of my POI, run over to the other zip rail, take it to Production Yard, right? And that team is probably gone, right? Because they've probably gone to Dry Gulch, and the Dry Gulch team is probably already gone to Zone. So,
Well,
ideally, right?
That's only if like the looting situation is fixed.
If the looting situation
get it done reasonably. If you don't have that, then you taking that zip rail just leads you into a team that's still looting, and you're stuck in a fight.
Yeah.
Because the other really big issue with zip rails is, sure, they're kind of hard to hit because they're pretty quick, but
you get beat.
We've seen pro players adapt to the Valkyl.
Yeah.
Imagine pro players adapting to teams on a zip rail.
Oh, you get fried.
So if you let's say you zip rail straight into a team, and let's say we do that exactly.
The rat plays go crazy.
We're at Foundry. You go onto the one that goes towards Production Yard. You're trying to get into Dry Gulch.
Yep.
The team in Production Yard is still looting. They finish up. They see, oh, hey, there's someone coming with a zip rail. What are your options from there? When you see that you're getting shot at from a team at Production Yard, well, you have three. You can either commit to it and just take the fight, take whatever damage you can, and just start a fight, and that screws up both of you guys, because now you're taking a fight outside of zone or wherever it ended up being, and it just kind of sucks for everybody involved. You can drop off and try and make a recovery from there, but now Production Yard has the advantage on you. They can poke this fight if they want to, and again screw it up for both of you. Or you're just stuck in a worse position and not able to rotate like you wanted to,
right?
Which is just as bad. Or you can try and turn around and take the zip rail back. And sure, maybe you'll get away with that, but eventually that's not going to work, because pros know how to adapt. So that would work early on, that wouldn't work later on, and you're stuck. You're screwed.
Yep.
My biggest issue with how zip rails work is that they kind of force this inty style onto anybody that uses them.
Do you think
it forces teams to just go into each other regardless of whether they want to or not?
Right. Is there no way around it? Because like obviously I think getting rid of the ones that go towards the center would be a good start. But like, could you solve it? Like a couple solutions I'm thinking, because like if we're trying to, like, if you got hired and you were like, how would you fix Broken Moon? Like loot situation, and then like zip rails need to be addressed.
You're giving me a tall task right now, man.
Yeah, for sure. You get rid of the ones that go towards the center, right? So you don't want like any of the ones near like Terraformer. I think going around Terraformer is probably fine. I don't know. Though like ones towards Promenade.
Sorry.
That's fair. The stasis, the ones in like stasis array or whatever, all those need to go. The ones that go from Promenade to Foundry to win, like whatever, like all these areas, everything in the center of the map should just be gone. All the zip rails. And then the outside ones, like, maybe like my first thoughts are like, well, what if we, when you do a Valkyl, when you pop a balloon or whatever, everyone immediately knows in this vicinity that that's happening, right? This is a rotation tool that's really fast. A grav cannon even. Everyone really hears it loud that's happening. But a zip rail, you can hear it, but only when they get close to you. I think like the zip rail should like glow and maybe have like a loud humming to it when anyone's on the zip rail, regardless of how far they are. That way, like, okay, if I'm in Production Yard and we're like, okay, we need to start rotating soon, and I see the zip rail, someone just hopped on it because it starts humming. I'm like, okay, we have a choice right now. We can either leave and continue our rotation, or we can let it scuff us and deal with Foundry. And then on the other note, Foundry knows if I rotate too fast, I know for a fact they're going to see me coming because it's going to be a loud audio cue, visual cue that says to the team that they're coming. So like that, those are some things that I would think. Also, I just think it should be a little slower. Just like on the zip. And I do wonder, like, I've thought about, like, could you just like lock them in where it's like, okay, you have set points you can get off. So like you have to commit to it like a grav cannon. I don't like
Okay.
almost like you have to hook in animation, or like maybe it's just a delay to get off or turn around, like where it like takes like 3 seconds to unhook or something. I don't know.
So on that, I'm going to give you a specific counterpoint, especially on the one where you're specifically saying the zip rail should glow, because I've heard that idea before, and I want to bring it up because when a zip rail is glowing, how do you actually know which direction the team on it is going?
Right. That's fair.
And another point, if it's glowing, how do you know where on the zip rail they're going or where they're at?
Right.
That's like, those are the two big things. When you're talking about like the gravity cannon or the jump tower,
You know exactly.
the jump tower is very clear. It's a giant thing and you see their trail. You know exactly where they are.
Yep.
Same thing with the gravity cannon. It goes off, boom. You can see a bright green glow on whichever cannon gets shot. And in the air, they have a trail on them that shows them in the air. There's like there's a little trail that follows them when they're in the air. That's a big thing. It's a very important thing because it tells you exactly which direction that person is going.
Yeah.
If you can't recreate that on a zip rail, you're kind of screwed. And if you have a zip rail that you can bounce around on and go back and forth on, then it's going to be very hard to reliably tell anybody which direction it is. What if there's people going in two different directions? What do you do? And on that point, you specifically mentioned doing like a lock-in, like you have to lock into a zip rail. Well, let me counterpoint that. With the gravity cannon, you lock in, you stay there, and you land at a specific point. And if there's a team on that point, you're screwed, sure. But you can also just go back on the cannon and go back to the other fixed point. And usually, it's pretty hard to track someone going through the air on a cannon.
Yep.
What do you do on a zip rail? Because
Yeah,
if
you can't.
unlock and you're on there and you're going back on the fixed line, same direction that they just shot you at, what do you do?
Yeah, 100%.
It turns a zip rail from being like a really powerful tool into almost a death sentence to touch, which just again creates a completely separate problem of why even have it on the map.
That's fair.
And
I think from my perspective, it's like the reason I would suggest that way is just because it does give it the kind of same gravity cannon point. Obviously, you could turn around a gravity cannon, but like if you gravity cannon like a high level on a team, you're just dead. Like there's no way around it.
Yeah.
Whereas like you said, there is a lot of zip rail outplayability, and like I think the zip rail should be something that's like heavily punished when used wrong. If you want to make it like comp viable, right? I think like a team in the Foundry that wants to go to production yard, if they take a zip rail, it should be something that it's like I need to know with some level of certainty that production yard's not there, or I shouldn't be taking the zip rail. And that's kind of my reason for that. That might not be the right mindset to have. So like that's I guess a different question to have. But like the grav cannon, it's like I would never take a grav cannon in a high level lobby unless I know that no one's on the other side. And I think that giving it that kind of mindset, and some zip rails are too long. Like the ones that go towards the center, they're so long that it's like you could never know that. And I think those zip rails should just be deleted. I think only zip rails that should exist should have stops, frequent stops, so that would be straightforward. It's like, oh, if I'm in a building, I see it glowing. Well, I know exactly where the other team is because it's like there's only one way they could be coming because I'm on the other end of it, kind of thing. But
again, the only real point I can make about that is zip rails do have a fundamental danger to using them already. They're not like this super powerful counterplay tool. There's something that, if done incorrectly, screws everybody that gets involved with it.
I see what you're saying. So it's really just that it's an issue. It's not really about like outplay. It's just like it just fundamentally makes the game like worse for both and everyone involved.
If you're on a zip rail and you have a team that can competently shoot you, like there's not much you can do other than hope they did shoot enough bullets as you're getting away,
right,
or going towards them. And if you're a team that's on the zip rail and you suddenly realize, oh shit, there's a team right at the stop that I'm going towards, what do I do? Your options are, again, stay vulnerable on the zip rail, drop into a worse spot, or fight them.
Right.
I talked about that before. It is something that is just so hard to work with, but too good to pass up. And that's like the biggest problem. And if you make it too good to pass up, then it breaks the flow. If it's too hard to use, then nobody's going to use it and there's no point. So
Right. It's just a bad
my
thing overall, yeah.
my fundamental thing with zip rails, just in general, everywhere, just get rid of them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. They don't need to be anywhere.
Yep.
Because
That's fair.
jump towers, they're very clear and you can do whatever you want with them. Gravity cannons, they're very clear and they have very fixed positions and you know the risk when you're using them.
Yeah.
You understand that very clearly. Zip rails, every time you hook onto one, you have absolutely no idea if you're about to get a great spot early on because you took a zip rail and it's super fast and you did a great job, or whether you just ran into a team in one of those zip builds and you're fucked.
Yep.
Like, it's just so much missing. Man, we only talked like half of this map. Jesus.
Yeah, so we can
Ugh.
let's do the Spark Notes version. Other things
Yeah.
you have, let's do the last couple. Give me one highlight, one thing you like about this map, just to come out
Highlight.
a little refresher.
Okay.
Just one. It just has to be one thing. It doesn't have to be big.
All right. Okay. If we ignore Promenade,
Yeah.
that's a very big if, but if we ignore Promenade, Broken Moon does do a good job giving you options to move into areas. Just walk into areas.
if
in
you
the
walk,
mid to late
yeah.
game. There's a lot of variety in getting around. There's a lot of just mountains fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
With different pathways to move through, and you never really get stuck
Yeah.
as long as you're not taking a zip rail.
That makes sense.
So
Yeah.
in a world where this map is like 20% smaller, that all the POIs aren't so ginormous big, fuck. The zip rails are gone. Promenade doesn't exist, and they, I don't know, just put something that isn't Promenade there. Sure, Broken Moon can work, but that's so much you already have to do to a map, and I think Respawn recognizes that.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And
So,
it's just, I don't know. I don't know what you do.
Do you have any other last like negatives that you want to talk about, that things you would change about this map?
We haven't actually talked about Promenade. Are you sure you want me to get into it?
Yeah, what would you Spark
Okay.
Notes? What would you do to fix Promenade? Obviously nuke it, but like what would you do aside from that?
Like, I don't think nuking it fixes the problem either. Sure, I guess it does, but at the same time, it just kind of moves the goalpost somewhere else because something should be there.
Right. Yeah.
Like, if you take away Promenade in general, the entire space, that the building area and the tunnel and everything, your POIs around it are Terraformer, Stasis, Core, and what else? Production Yard. Those are the closest things around it, and there's just a giant empty space in the map with nothing. I don't think that's the right answer.
Do you think you could just like, this is just a thought. Do you think you could just like cut Promenade in half, make the south part like just part of that POI, right? Just keep it as is, and then just like make the middle just a cliff, like a mountain, and then the right side just open it up, or like make it just like an open area to pass through? Do you think that would fix it?
No, because the POI itself of Promenade is the problem.
Okay.
Let's harken back to Olympus, where we talked about Turbine and the issue
Right.
there. Look, this isn't as bad, don't get me wrong, but look at the areas that have to go through Promenade on a rotation.
Yeah.
So let's say we're on the north side and we are on Breaker Wharf, Core, Dry Gulch, and we need to get to, say, Cultivation or Atmo. We either have to take a really long path all the way through Stasis, through Transformer, and through Atmo to get to Cultivation if you're at Core, or you have to go all the way around to Gulch, Production Yard, and Foundry to get to Cultivation, or you can go through Promenade.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes sense.
And everybody else is doing the exact same thing.
You think just nuking that mountain west of Promenade, just like getting rid of that, like and like
Nope.
making more playable area there?
Again, it's
It's
not.
probably a
It's not so much
combination,
that
right, of a lot of things.
like again, if you take them away, if you just take it all away, there's not like built-in lanes that you can work with. There's not built-in
So
like
you
paths you
so
can
you almost have
create.
to
I just
build
don't
a whole
know.
new thing there. Like you just have to
It'd have to
do,
be something so different
yeah.
that it wouldn't be the same map. You'd have a new map. Broken Moon is just broken, and fuck, I can't reasonably say there's a way to make the map as it currently is. Maybe you could make it fun, but it'd never be competitively viable.
Yeah.
Maybe you can make it
If you
fun.
had like, you only could do one thing, just one POI, like
God, okay.
basic. Okay, here, I have a good idea.
Okay.
You
You're
have
really
to,
trying with me. You're really trying.
you're just taking a POI asset, just flat the POI itself, and you're throwing it over all of North South Promenade. You're just chucking it there to fix the map. What POI are you throwing there?
Like, am I throwing a whole POI there?
You're just
Is that what
chucking
you're
a
saying?
POI. Yep, you're just taking it and you're putting it right over top. What POI are you doing? Like a landslide,
POI.
Jurassic, maybe? Or are you taking like a, I don't know. You could take another approach, like a command center. Just pop a big mountain there. What would you put there? You know,
What would I put there? It's gonna sound stupid. Orbital.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I was thinking kind of the same thing.
So
I was thinking the same thing because it's about big
let
and
me
like so much cover.
no. Let me explain. Let me explain. You see, this is like the one line we ever see at any of the spots on Broken Moon. But you see like the area just north of Promenade where you have like these sets of tunnel or like choke
Yep.
mountains that get set up. Line up the back of Orbital where like the map ends on there and set up like the chokes through that, and then make Orbital like this giant POI that you can move around in. That'd be the only thing. It wouldn't fix it. It'd still be awful, but at least Orbital's there. So guess what? There you go.
I like it.
I it's Broken Moon.
I'm popping Jurassic there. I'm popping it right. I'm just putting center point of Jurassic right where the survey beacon is. Right there.
I mean, yeah, that is something. I just
Yeah, I get what you're saying though. It's definitely a hard
I
undertaking. And it's
it,
like you're
I really
it's such
hope
a fundamental part of the map.
I don't know if like you're recording this, so this is gonna be posted somewhere. But I really hope that at some point, if a respawn dev ever sees this and they see just how much I am hating on this map, I just want whoever was making this to know that I do appreciate the work that you put into
It's
this
such a
map,
cool concept.
how much time you did, because it is genuinely very cool. And I hope that whatever you're making next, whether it's the leaked district or whatever else, I hope you've taken the lessons you've learned from this and you're able to make something genuinely amazing, because I do want to enjoy the maps that Respawn makes. I really do.
Yeah.
It's just not this one.
Yeah. I'm there with you. I definitely feel the same way. All right, we'll move on to. I got like one little subtopic, and then I got
Okay.
the last thing that we can kind of wrap up with. So I don't know. You probably didn't get the chance to see my ring console video I put out a little like was it 2 weeks ago. But I talked about this thing, this idea I had. I'll just move it off to the side here before I pull it. But I was talking about one of the big ways that I would personally balance POIs, and I was talking about an issue I have with World's Edge and Stormpoint, specifically with the ring console and the survey beacon, because they're like hard crutch tools, right? These are things that like pro teams like develop the entire meta around. I mean, that information is like obviously one of the most important aspects of the game. And the spawn rates for ring consoles, and I think survey beacons are the same, is like 60%, right? Flat 60 across all of them. Obviously, there's like anecdotal things where it's like, oh, well, you know, my actual spawn rate has been 75% or whatever. But in reality, it's just like there's 20 POIs or 20 ring consoles on the map, 12 are going to get them, right? So
Yeah.
what I'm wondering, because obviously there's like, it's a more complex math, but like I feel like the ring console and the survey beacon should be used as they're being underutilized. Like the fact that they're so broken as like I don't want to say broken, but like the fact that they're so crutched and competitive, I feel like having the spawn rate be equal on all POIs is a poor design for balancing POIs. Like if we want like competitive integrity, and you want to have like obviously like as it currently stands, which is this will be the last topic, but like as it currently stands, you can like if you want a better POI, then you can just contest for it, right? You just contest for a better POI, but that's like easier said than done. Also, like if every POI landed, every player, every team contested for the same POI, and you had 20 teams dropping there, it wouldn't exactly be viable, right? That's the reason people don't do it. But you wouldn't get any practice, you throw your games, and ultimately it wouldn't matter on game day. But like every POI is like one of the biggest things reasons they're skewed is because all of the other things factor in, right? Like high ground, rotation utility, loot pool, all this stuff, but they all have the same spawn rate. So like why not use spawn rates as a balance tool and also use them to affect the way that you play at a certain POI. So like I came up with this was just a rough generalization of like what I would do, but I had a recommendation that ring consoles should have spawn rates reflective to the reliance on that tool out of their POIs. So basically, like if you are a hard zone POI, like Landslide Jurassic, for example, you're getting nothing out of those POIs, and you have to leave really quick because if you're in Landslide and you don't loot fast, countdown's coming to kill you. If you're in Jurassic and you don't loot fast and leave, course or Pylon is coming to kill you, right? So those POIs, like you have no advantage but to leave fast for zone. So like you're basically when you choose to land there, you're betting on a 60%. Basically, you get to play the game 60% of the time because you can't really play edge out of the POI because of its location. You really can't fight another team next to you because every other team's going to be more kitted. And so your only bet is like the 60% of the time that you get the ring console, you're going to play well. And the rest of the game, if you even get a favorable zone, and the rest of the game time you can't play the game. And then there's other like POIs, but then there's other POIs like, like Sky West Trials. They're literally never, I guess it's not a good example because Sky East technically gets the ring console, but let's say Thermal, right? Thermal almost never. I mean, it's got to be a harvester tree or like staging zone for them to like leave right away, right? And even then, it's like they might not. So why are they having the same rate to get a ring console from a team that needs it to play? Does it make sense?
Okay.
So like I proposed having like spawn rates that are, and basically my suggestion was do something like this. So I don't know if you can read the percentages on here, but basically my suggestion was something like this for the spawn rates, and then having the survey beacons be the inverse of that, because then edge relies more on that tool, but it's so there'd still be a possibility you could get both or you could get the opposite, right? But you would get the one that's more reliant on your tool. So like it would make it so that like if you're playing an edge POI, you're gonna probably pick up a recon scan legend, but you probably don't need to pick up a controller legend because your spawn rate's not that high. And then it makes it more, it's like, okay, well, I'm deciding to play this playstyle, therefore this POI makes more sense. If that makes sense.
Okay.
I haven't heard people talk about this before. I think I don't know.
One thing I do want to kind of point out what I've been discussing with you today.
Yeah.
You place a lot of emphasis on how a play style should be played at certain POIs, and I kind of want to offer the counterpoint of why shouldn't a team be allowed to play their own play style regardless of the POI? And I want to preface this by saying that how you like categorize ones like Jurassic or a Landslide. Well, yeah, the general median is they're not great POIs. You kind of have to work around it.
Right.
The counterpoint I really can make about that is 2R1C playing at Jurassic during Pylon. Or not during Pylon, during EMEA.
Yep.
They would more often than not, they'd finish looting their POI, they take Mountain Lift, they take that loot.
Yep.
They for a long period of time played Crypto, Bangalore, Lifeline.
Right. Yeah.
They had no ring console. None at all. They were still able to play very well from Jurassic. They take control of, say, Pylon or Cedo once those POIs got open, and they'd be able to figure it out through either the survey beacon usage or just general knowledge of the map. And that strategy worked well for them. They're at LAN. That's a
Yeah,
that's a very
that's a good
important
point.
thing. And I think one thing that I wouldn't want to see change in the game is allowing for those opportunities to really take shape and funneling, or not funneling, but like limiting what POIs can achieve based
Yeah,
on
that's a good point.
spawn rates
Yeah,
is not a fundamentally good thing.
yeah, I could see that.
A good example, this wasn't intentional, obviously, but a good example of this was a POI that was really good for a very long time. Way back when. I don't know how long you've been watching Apex, but way back when. Mirage Voyage used to be the only POI on that section of the map. There was no staging.
Right.
So it was just like the no-name POI around it and then Harvester.
Yep.
Now, there was no beacon issues there. Mirage was pretty good. It was
Yeah,
fun.
yep, it was,
It had no problem. It had no problem with Lava Fisher. It had beacons. It was fine.
Yep.
But once staging got in there, a little rule that is now gone from the game, a little rule was added that made it so if POIs were too close together, they wouldn't spawn beacons. If
Yep,
one
I
had
remember
them,
that.
one
Yeah.
had them. Yeah, you probably remember that. Staging was the biggest victim of that rule because it was so close to Mirage Voyage, Harvester, Landslide, and Thermal. If any of these POIs got a beacon, it basically meant they didn't get a beacon.
Yep.
And say in a scenario where I'm playing, say, Crypto. I want to play Crypto, and I'm landing at staging. And in your scenario, if I'm correct, this is for ring consoles, the percentages you're giving, right?
Yeah, and then I was suggesting maybe on the survey beacons being the inverse.
Yeah, so it'd be a 30% chance of getting a survey beacon at staging. Well, now I'm kind of screwed if I want to play Crypto because I have an extremely unlikely chance of actually getting a survey beacon I can use to gather Evo and no information right off the start of the game.
Right.
That is my big counter argument to this point is sure at like a base level this will help some playstyles work better on certain POIs, but it also limits player creativity. It limits the ability to create new strategies. If this was here, we wouldn't see a lot of the more dynamic play we're seeing nowadays because people would play very specifically to use these beacons. And also, how much do you account for like third beacon plays? Like a lot of teams will specifically play for the third beacon anyways, even if they get a POI or a POI with a beacon.
I think that my interpretation of how this could impact it is a little different. So like my mindset was like, well, we look at it this way, right? Like we have teams that you're right. Like most teams, there are variations that happen, right? But overall, like the meta is pretty heavily determined on like ring console. So like right now, like the meta is pretty. I mean, obviously there's other factors, right? But like you would ask any pro and they'd be like, well, we need a controller legend because like how are we going to pass up the ring console, right? So like there's like the style of play becomes pretty homogenous across the board when like a meta is enforced like that, and like the teams might play that meta differently, and obviously we're seeing like other regions don't do that as much as like an NA does, so maybe that's like an A bias or something, but like these teams typically play pretty homogenous across the board because regardless they're going to have a good amount of time where like their POIs are going to get somewhere close to beacon, right? Like they're going to get a POI they can play out of, like they're going to get priority. So they're like, well, we'll play ring console because 60% of the time we're going to get that, and then 30% of the time we're going to get a POI that's close to us that we can play out of. What I think would make it interesting is by doing it this way, I think of it the inverse, where it's like right now, if you ask like, Hal or Raven, they're like, you're pretty much throwing if you're not playing flex playstyles. But because you're playing flex playstyles, the POIs that are best for flex will win, So like right now, like the teams playing out of Lightning Rod, Zoo Station, Pylon, Cedo, they're like some of the best POIs in the game for playing flex. So they're going to play so much better because they're getting the same spawn rate and they are the better POIs for flex. So the only way, without changing the spawn beacon rates, the only ways that you can like make other POIs just as viable is, and obviously there's variability, right? Like if you're just better, like, you know, 2R1C, like they're a really good fighting team. So like they're just like good at fighting. Then, I mean, we've seen teams, especially in like challenger circuit stuff, they'll land in like Devastating Coast just because they're like, well, we can beat all these other teams, so we're just gonna land there because we're close to other teams that we can bully and stuff. So like it's, which does have a variability, but in my mind, I'm like, if we take right now the flex POIs that are better are going to be the ones that win, because right now there's just so everyone's leaning towards playing flex. So if you made it so that the spawn rates reflected like the benefits of those POIs, then you would make it better for the teams that land there, because then they can lean on those, like that play style. So like a team that wants to play, that's like better at playing edge out of like a thermal station or something, or you know, climatizer, they could be like, well, we're gonna, you know, we're playing an edge comp, so now we don't necessarily need to pick up a controller legend unless we really, you know, unless we want to play out of like a console later on the rotate. But like we don't have to, right? We can choose to play hard edge like an Aurora would play, and then they pick up, you know, the Lifeline, and maybe they don't pick up, I forget, they're running Lifeline, Bloodhound, Bang, right?
Yeah.
So like for them, right, they're gonna get the survey beacon when they leave their POI, almost like 80 to 90%, because if they're landing, Aurora lands, where are they landing right now?
They're landing Climatizer Cena.
Yeah, so like in that case, like I'd have, you know, 80% in Climatizer, and I think 80% Cena too, or 90% Cena, something like that. Obviously, this is not a perfect math, but like, you know, they'd have like 80 or 90% of a survey beacon, which is much more valuable to them, because that's the kind of info that values their playstyle. Versus another team, they might be like, you know, we want to play flex, but we're going to use the survey beacon as like a delayed ring console, because by the time we're leaving out of these bad POIs, not bad, but like edge POIs, we're pretty late to most POIs anyway. So we can hit a survey beacon, we can already kind of tell where everyone's rotating, so we can play an end zone there. So that if they want to play some variation of flex, they still can, but it's less viable out of like more edge centered POIs versus like the good flex. It's the same reason like the good flex POIs, like Cedo, Pylon, and like, you know, Harvester, Lava Siphon. I kept them at 60%, and I'd probably like I kept them there because it's like realistically, you know, they're playing flex zone like a TSM, an 07 or something like that. They're gonna, you know, they're gonna land there, and they want to play zone if they can, because they want. Why wouldn't you want to get a priority position? But they're willing to play play edge, and chances are, when they don't get their ring console, they will get a survey beacon, but it's not going to be as confident that they'll get both. And I think that's where the variation is. Whereas like a team that's in the center, like could more definitively play zone. So it's like my mindset was just like it would allow for even more variability. And one of the things that I really like about it, and again, this is like, these are rough ideas, so like obviously like just throwing it out, but like one of the interesting things I think that could come out of it is like one of the things I really like that's like marketable for ALGS is like, I think the play style feeds a team, like knowing what you're getting from a team. Like Aurora is so marketable because you know that like they're that team that is on the outside just fighting everybody, right? And there's no one really does it like them. And I think a big reason is because it's safer to play flex. So not a lot of and there are teams that play edge, but no one really plays it like them. And obviously like they have to adjust a little bit, but they're still kind of doing their own thing. But then like a hard zone team, like I don't know what their current team is, but like what's his name? Brazil, the Portuguese guy.
Talking about Kashera.
Kashera, yeah, like he plays hard zone, right? Like he's like very, or at least he used to play very, very hard zone crypto, and like that play style, like he would be much better at playing. Like obviously he might not be able to hit a survey beacon out of his POI, but like on the rotate, he's going to be pretty guaranteed to like be able to hit a survey beacon at some point on his rotate. But he's going to almost always get a ring console if he's playing out of his own POI. So like I think my main purpose was like, okay, well we can let more legends see the light of day, and also have like more POIs be like more balanced, I guess. It's like another tool to balance, because if you made it known, you're like, oh, this is the percentages, you kind of start to see, you know, you might see Dark Zero be like, well, we liked playing edge, but like it's not exactly our preferred play style, but now that we see that the ring console rate dropped, maybe we'll go to, countdown, or maybe we'll go somewhere else because that's more how our team likes to play. That was my mindset. I do think you're right, though. I think that there's elements of it that it detracts from. So I don't know.
I think the biggest thing I want to point out about this idea is I don't. You wanted to talk about it, so I'm going to bring it up. The changes that are going to be happening here soon in
Yeah,
Split 2.
let's just get into it, and that way we
So
can wrap.
I
Because I'm sorry I've kept you for so long.
no. I specifically want to bring this up in reference to what you're suggesting here, because in like the new format, you can give a breakdown in a second, but in the new format, teams aren't always going to get the choice that they want for a POI on each week. So when that choice is taken away and you're forced to play from, say, let's say you are Aurora and you land Climatizer and you start there and you always play there. Let's say you have a bad week and you have a bad time. All right, that sucks. I guess I get to have to pick a different POI in the draft. All right, not Lava Siphon. Lava Siphon is taken. Thermal Station is taken. Climatizer is taken. Launch Site is taken. What does Aurora do? What does Aurora do in that scenario in the new format where they suddenly have to go, well, I have to play completely differently from how I want to play, and the POIs are kind of funneled in a way where these playstyles have to be played.
Yeah, I mean,
and that doesn't work for them.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So
I think you're right, because I think the
here.
change
I do get it.
My opinion might change with this new update. If this becomes legitimate, I think that it might change my opinion on this. I think you're right, but it would definitely be interesting seeing Aurora try to play zone. But I would argue that I think the way it'll end up playing out. Yeah, let me read it. Okay, can we give our thoughts and then I can let you be free? You can fly away.
Go ahead.
So I'm just gonna read the update because this is very recent and it's not 100% confirmed, but they already released the private lobbies ability to do this.
It's
so
a leak. It's a
seems
leak.
Pretty likely. I don't typically dabble in the news peddling, but I think this is an important one for what we're discussing. So we finally feel as though we're able to adequately address each of these issues. The preset spawn system was introduced into the game in Tuesday's update and is playable in private matches. This already exists in the game. In this system, all teams are aligned to one of a possible 29 specific drop locations on Stormpoint or World's Edge. When additional maps are introduced to the ALGS, we will approach them in the same way. Interesting that they put that there. Each team drops simultaneously from a preset height above their POI. We hope to implement this system starting with Split 2 regular season of ALGS Year 4 Pro League. To do that, we're hoping you will test the various settings and provide us with specific settings feedback as well as general blah blah blah. How does this solve POI selection? We plan to implement. I'll kind of spark notes that basically. There's going to be a snake draft before every match day, where each person picks their POI. It's going to be balanced so that every team has an average amount of picks early, late, and mid in the snake draft. And there are some of the larger POIs like Lava Siphon that, and probably like, I don't know, maybe like obviously like I don't know. Lava Siphon being the biggest one, Stacks Mod, stuff like that, are going to be split, right? Basically, this means that there's going to be 29 places to pick. You pick them before this game starts in a snake draft. I assume meaning that if you pick first on World's Edge, you'll pick last on Stormpoint. And then you will, or I guess if there's Olympus as well or whatever other map, then you'll be able to pick, alternating order. This is interesting because it's definitely going to change a lot. And even what I'm saying now, like, might not age well if that comes out pretty quick. So we will have to see. But what are your thoughts on this? I'm gonna have to repeat that. What are your thoughts on this? Because I just had a big noise thing.
Okay. So yeah, with the proposed changes, and obviously we already see them in private matches. I've taken a look at them. The spicy. with them in particular, I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
I want to say that first and foremost. I like it. What the changes are gonna like specifically do, and just things to keep in mind. Obviously, we're not gonna be having ego contests going on anymore. Ego contests, anything where it's just like someone committing for a long period of time to a single contest.
Yeah.
Say or like just having like big grief situations, like I don't know, X set and Ape Gang. Let's point that one out.
Yep.
Like situations like that. Those are gonna be gone, which is good. I mean, I like the fact that there's gonna be like more, I guess, quote unquote equality
Yeah.
throughout the spread, especially since like the bigger POIs like Lava Siphon aren't always gonna go to TSM, and that's gonna be interesting.
That's gonna be interesting.
I don't know how this is gonna go, but yeah, that's gonna be
TSM
interesting.
TSM not qualifying for Split 2? Question mark? Thumbnail?
Oh no.
Okay.
Honestly, they may do better if they don't land Lava Siphon. Who knows?
No, I think they have a full team behind them, so they're gonna have all the info.
But that's the other thing. This change also is going to make it really important to be able to adapt to a new POI quickly.
Yeah.
And I think what the danger of that is that a lot of teams that are like up and coming that don't have the same amount of resources or the same coaching and analysts
Yep.
and things behind them to help them out to get ready to go each and every week with their new POI are going to really struggle.
Yep.
To try and adapt to it. I think that's going to be a really big problem. I think the teams that will succeed the most out of it are the ones that can get there quickly, get there fast.
Yep. Any teams
looking obviously for...
Oh, sorry. I was going to say any teams looking for macro help can pick up MooreOver or myself.
Hey, I've offered. Okay. With that specific change, and the biggest problem is it's going to be a disparity, not out of just pure skill, but just out of pure resources. And I think that's going to be a really rough thing to see, because the teams that don't have that are going to have to just either play super flexible to have any chance, or they're going to have to like work above and beyond what anybody else is going to have to try and keep up.
Yeah.
So I don't know the exact outcome of how this is going to go. Obviously, we haven't actually seen the test yet. International scrims probably aren't going to run them just because they're not going to be there for LAN.
Yep.
So we're not going to really know how it's going to go until probably after playoffs.
Yeah.
We'll find out from there.
I think there's a couple big takeaways there for sure. One of the big things is that they did mention that they're going to release the picks for POIs at least a few days, if not a week ahead, to give the teams time to scrim on the POIs they're landing. So that's a good thing. I also think that it's going to make these bigger POIs probably worse, because, I mean, before you land Stacks Mod, right? You're Optic, you're landing Stacks Mod, you say, if you land Mod, we're just fighting you. You know, we're going to kill you every game. Don't land Mod. But now you can't just like bully every team out and take 2 portions of a POI all the time, because you just don't have the choice, right? Like, I mean, for one, obviously there's 29, so there's going to be a bunch of splits, but not enough that it's like, okay, you know, if I say I'm in Stacks, you land Mod, I'm going to fight you every time. Well, for one, you're not going to fight me every time. You're going to fight me this round because the next day I might not get it. And 2, you know, if you land Stacks and you come fight Mod, well, I can't go to another one, because if I go to Mirage, well, you know, Fisher said if I land Mirage, I'm going to land on you, and you can't land on them. So you can't even 50-50. You have to like land and then fight. So it's not really that risky to land on. So really the better POIs are going to be like Harvester and like Tree, not necessarily Tree, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like POIs that don't have the split drops where 2 teams can't land on it are going to be way better off than these teams that or these POIs where 2 teams can land off drop and there's just nothing you can do about it. So that's going to be interesting.
I will point out, yeah, that's probably what is going to be the new grief, is someone picks Stacks and somebody else picks Mod.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen there. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I don't think splits are going away from that. I think they're definitely going to be people who will grief out of that. Like, say Dark Zero picks up Trial, someone will slap on West and try and loot all of Skyhook
Yeah, 100%.
and really just fuck them over. But at the same time, if you're one of those teams that are getting fucked over, like we've seen how this goes
Exactly.
everywhere. It doesn't matter if you're just landing on a POI by itself and you're not coming out of a dropship. You're still probably just gonna loot and then look to kill them because
Yep.
screw them. They took your they're taking your stuff.
Yeah.
It's gonna be more of a grief than it was before now if you pick those because now you're
100%.
you're forcing it to be not like a straight up 50-50
Yeah,
scenario.
yeah,
You're
it
forcing it
is.
to be something far worse
It's
where you're
also not
splitting the loot.
even it's not surprising either. You don't get the surprise drop. So there's like you commit to griefing
I don't think
someone.
that's a bad thing. I'm good.
No, I think it's good. I think it's just crazy because like imagine, right? Like you're like Optic and you're like, well, we're gonna land stacks, which I think they leave, but whatever. So now you have Optic right there, and then some CC team lands in Big Mod, and you're like, okay, well, we have a full 5 days of scrims, and we're going to fight you at Mod and kill you every time. And what's very funny to me is you've locked that in. You are now locked in. I mean, I don't know if they're going to allow for changes to like open spots, but like assuming they don't,
I don't believe so.
I
No.
don't think they will. You're just going to like that CC team just through their whole match day, and they're going to know before match day. They're going to know that they're done like before it gets there. And so like that's gonna be very interesting to see how that stuff plays out. And is it like, oh well, now we know we just have to leave as fast as we can. And then Geyser team is like, well, I know this team's gonna come down here all the time, so let's just keep gatekeeping them. And it's just gonna make some really interesting dynamics. Do you think this is gonna make do you think this is gonna make World's Edge or Stormpoint better? Do you think it's gonna make any of the other maps better? Like, what are your other thoughts on it for that stuff?
I I don't think it's gonna like fundamentally change. It's gonna fundamentally change how we play, but I don't think it's gonna change the quality of the maps or how well they play. Like obviously, I imagine rotations are gonna be a little bit different, maybe a little bit, but outside of that, I don't think there's gonna be. I don't think it's gonna make like maps suddenly become viable, or it's gonna make any maps worse. But it is gonna change how a lot of people have to play both their POIs or the map itself. It's going to be different, and I'm just waiting to see how different it's going to be.
Okay. And the last tangent that I and like thought that I had, this is a little bit of a tangent from it, is for I've thought about this for a while because I remember them like doing the trial for this, which was that limited time mode, and where they had the drop ins. I forget what the name of it was, but I my immediate thought was for this was, well, why is this not in ranked? Because in my head, I feel like you could really introduce this to ranked as well, because we want ranked to kind of be an imitation of comp in some ways, so that flood underlings like us can even if we're not mechanically as skilled, we can maybe use our knowledge a little bit and try to move up the ranks and play like we're pros. I thought this would be a good idea to utilize in like a HUD before the game. Like why I think it'd be interesting if they incorporated something similar to this to ranked where right after or right before or after character selection you could select a POI, select one of these 29 drop spots that you want to go into, and everyone can see that there's a team queued to drop there. And maybe there's a max of 2 per POI. So like if you load in first, you're gonna get probably a pick faster. But you pick a POI, and then up to 2 teams can pick to drop out of the same spot, and then it would fill up, and you could swap if you see people like landing next to you. You could like, oh, I want to move to here or something like that. And then after the time, like 10 seconds is up or whatever, all of them are locked in. You think that'd be an interesting thing to add to ranked, or do you think that like this should be something that stays to comp?
I mean, I've heard this idea before for ranked. I've definitely heard of it before because like the idea comes from like other
Games,
competitive
right?
games
Yeah.
where you've had similar idea. I know Rainbow Six does something similar
Mm-hmm.
with it, but I know that this change is pretty fundamentally big. And
Yeah,
while, yeah, it could make something interesting in ranked, I definitely want to see how it plays out in competitive first
that's a good
before
point.
we put the very very wide demographic of ranked
Yeah,
onto it.
that's fair. And I think
Because
there's also the room for like, I know people have mentioned before where it's like, well, if you get to masters, then swap it then, or diamond then, or something like that. Could be an option too.
maybe, but yeah, just because how ranked actually relates to comp is very different. Even if you like try your best
To play,
to
yeah,
treat ranked as close as you can to comp, it's practically impossible to replicate the
100%.
experience. So sure, it could do something pretty good for ranked, but it's not going to do the exact same thing, and we should even see if it works in comp first before we even consider that.
Good point. That's a very good point. Do you have any other last thoughts on that?
Um, I'm just looking forward to seeing what it's going to be.
Yeah, I
Honestly,
think I
I'm just
think
looking
it's going to
forward
be
to it.
very interesting, especially if they end up doing something with a new map or whatever. It'll be cool to see that.
God, I'm glad I'm not the one playing it. Just watch it. I'm good.
It's gonna be nice to just watch.
Get some popcorn.
Yeah, right. Well, wow, this went way longer, so I really appreciate how much time you gave me tonight for this. It was a great conversation. I feel like we discussed a
Appreciate it.
lot of cool stuff. I just want to give you the chance to kind of shout out both your your channels, but also like if there's any projects you're working on or anything you need anyone to check out. Uh, the floor is yours.
I make analytical content you can check out at youtube.com/MooreOverVO. You can check me out live at twitch.tv/MooreOver _. And I try to make sure I'm involved in different parts of the scene. If you ever check out the Rose Cup, you can hear me over there. And if you're going to land, maybe you'll find me there. Who knows? But yeah, that's kind of it for me.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much, man, and everyone that listened this far. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. I'm gonna be trying to put out more videos like this in the future. If you like these, let me know in the comments. And if you like ALGS content in general, and you want me to talk about any aspects of Apex competitive meta, let me know in the comments. And I will see you all next time. See you.